Okay, so as chairman, I am calling this meeting of the Phoenix AMA Groundwater Users Advisory Council to order. I want to thank staff for all the logistical nightmare that they've worked through and helping each of us be able to navigate the process. Thank the board for its attendance and willingness to commit the time necessary to do the job we need to do. I want to thank the applicants and others in attendance as well. The date is June 10th, 2020, and the time is 1 o'clock. This meeting is held virtually with the base being at the Arizona Department of Water Resource Office. My name is Stephen Cleveland. I am the chair. I would like, starting with Frank, please introduce yourselves for the minutes.
Frank Fairbanks, assistant chair or deputy chair, whatever.
Okay. Dave
Roberts.
Ron. Have we lost Ron? Well, at the moment, we have three of the 5 of our members are present, so therefore we do have a quorum. Would ADWR staff members please introduce themselves? Enav.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see that Mr. Rayner was unmuted. Mr. Rayner, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Okay, this is Ron Rayner. Sorry, I had trouble getting my little icon to unmute, but okay now.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So my name is Einav Henenson, and I am the Active Management Area Section Director. I also have with me Kennedy Shepard, who will go over the logistics in a little bit, and we have Melissa Sykes, who coordinates the Water Management Assistance Program, and you'll hear from her in a little bit as well.
Could we make certain that everybody has muted their telephones, call boxes as much as they can? Mine, if it goes off, is a little bit troublesome. Go ahead, Einav.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So we're going to keep everyone on mute except of the GUAC members. So in case members would like to mute themselves, please go ahead and mute yourself, but we wouldn't do it for you if that's okay with you, unless you would like us to. So just let us know.
That's okay.
Excellent. So, Mr. Chair, I believe we can move on to number 2, webinar logistics.
Yes, please. Kennedy.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So before we start, I just want to go over a few Webex logistics. Like Einav said, we do ask that everyone mute their phones unless you're a member and you want to reduce audio feedback when you aren't speaking. And since we have a lot of items on our agenda today and to ensure we get through all of our presentations, members of the public, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to please type them into the chat box and we will get to them during our call to public. And if you would like to speak, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and speak during that time as well. Finally, if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please feel free to chat me. I am under Teresa Johnson's login information, or you are more than welcome to contact our help desk. That number and email is on the screen. They are available to help you as well. And this meeting is being recorded along with anything that is said in the chat. That is all going to be public information, and it will be posted on our website probably by next week. And that is all.
Thank you, Kennedy. So it's now 1:07. Can we proceed with our application presentations if it works for you, staff?
Yes, that would be great. So, Mr. Chair, members of the council and members of the public, Melissa and I will go over the meeting procedures in a few minutes, and then we'll dive right into the presentation. So I'll start by introducing this grant in general. I suspect most of you know what it is and what it's for, but just so we all under the same understanding. So this meeting specifically is focused solely on the application submitted towards the groundwater conservation grant. So again, you may recall that this grant was issued in the sum of $2 million and was appropriated by the legislators in January 2019 as part of the Drought Contingency Plan agreements. And the intention of it is to support groundwater conservation projects within the 5 active management areas. This grant money is divided among the 5 active management areas on a per capita basis with a minimum amount of $150,000 for AMAs with smaller population. So Phoenix AMA, being the most populated area, or AMA, was allocated $1,245,000, while Tucson AMA was allocated $305,000, and Pinal, Santa Cruz, and Prescott AMAs were allocated $150,000 each. So this grant is administered by the Water Management Assistance Program. However, the grant funds, those $2 million, are separated from the Water Management Assistance Program funds, which are generated from the groundwater withdrawal fee. So there is a distinction here. So let's talk a little bit about the meeting. So the meeting will span over the next 2 days, as I hope you all know. During the first day of the meeting, which is today, what we're going to have now, we will hear presentations about the 13 proposed projects that were submitted towards this grant for the Phoenix Active Management Area. The list of projects and schedules of presentation is detailed on the second page of the agenda, which was included in the email that Kennedy sent a few days ago. During the second day, which is tomorrow, GUAC members will then discuss and prioritize the projects according to the strength of the applications and presentations that we'll hear today, the project's cost effectiveness, groundwater to be conserved, the impact of the project, as well as the AMA needs and funding available, among other criteria that the members deem appropriate. Then the prioritized list will be given to ADW, our director, to make the final decision on the funding distribution. So again, this was a very brief overview of what we're going to expect in the next 2 days of the meeting. And Melissa now will go over the specific details of today's meeting and presentations.
Thank you, Einav, Mr. Chair, and members of the council. So as you've seen, we have a very busy agenda and we have a lot to cover during this meeting. To make the transition faster, we've combined all the presentations together and I will be advancing the slides as the applicants present. Each applicant will have 10 minutes to present and followed by a 5-minute Q&A. We'll also take a short break at 3:05 p.m. for 15 minutes and we'll resume presentations then. So due to the large number of presentations, we have to stick to this very strict schedule, and we will ask presenters to remain within the time assigned to you. I will let you know when you have 1 minute left by putting this sign in front of the screen, because I don't want to interrupt you guys. And we'll, if you do pass the 10 minutes, a lot of your presentation, I'll have to ask you to stop presenting and we'll have to move on to questions because this schedule is very full, it's jam-packed. And if the questions don't last the full 5 minutes, we'll move on to the next presentation. Presenters were also asked to attend the meeting tomorrow as well, in case GUAC members still have remaining questions for their application. The GUAC members provided me with their preliminary assessment of each application, and members are free to adjust their assessments based on the presentation and following Q&A today. GUAC members have also submitted a conflict of interest form specifying whether they have a conflict of interest with one or more of the applications. Members with such a conflict will not be able to discuss or ask questions regarding that project. So before we begin with the presentation, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Do we have all the applicants present at the moment, the 13 applicants?
Do we have the first few? Mr. Chair, it seems like we have the first few, at least. I suspect all of them should be here, but we'll make sure to check as we go forward, because it will take us time to go through all the attendees.
Okay, very well.
We do have a question from the public from Andrew. He said, Melissa, with the number of participants, we might not see the 1-minute sign. Andrew, what you can do on the top, if you see everybody's camera, find Melissa's and you can pin her video, and she will stay within the top few, so you can always see her video. Okay. Got it.
Mr. Chair, I believe we are ready to start with the first presentation.
Okay, I'm only going to introduce the applicant organization. I will not introduce the person that will be speaking, so we will ask that they introduce themselves. I will introduce the applicant and the project title as it currently is before us. So if I may, Arizona State University has a project which is the ASU Tempe Grounds Irrigation Modernization. And we would ask that that applicant go ahead and proceed. 10 minutes.
Hi all, thanks for your time this afternoon. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, very well.
Thank you. My name is Alex Davis, and along with Corey Hockey, I support the water conservation efforts at ASU. We've already had our project introduced, so if I could just go to the next slide. So to provide some background for our proposal, we're working to modernize our irrigation system on the Tempe campus with the goal of reducing our campus water use. We're in this planning phase with a master plan to lay out our new system, but we haven't moved actually into implementation. So the goal of this grant for us is to kickstart replacement and consolidation with a new system that's going to be a network system that's going to reduce outdoor water use and ultimately conserve our groundwater. Next slide, thanks. So some background for where things stand right now. Our existing systems are a hodgepodge combination of hand-watered zones, standalone controllers, and then a few network controllers at new buildings. This mess of systems really wastes a lot of water through inefficient irrigation. So we're trying to address this with a modern system of network controllers that takes into account plant needs and weather to apply just enough water based on ET or evapotranspiration. The problem is these systems are expensive and they don't justify their upfront cost based on the amount of water we would save. Next slide, please. We have been working on several other projects in the meantime. We've started replacing indoor fixtures on the Tempe campus, retrofitting and replacing about 2,000 toilets and urinals, and that's going to expand to our other campuses. And then in partnership with the City of Phoenix and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, we installed a hydrogel polymer in the turf on the soccer fields on our West Campus. You might have seen this project on the news, and hopefully it's going to reduce our water loss to seepage. And then the entire Poly campus is designed as a desert arboretum with low water use plantings. But to complement all these different projects, given that Tempe is our largest campus and irrigation water use is a pretty notable chunk of that water needs, we really want to update the irrigation system to make sure that we're supporting a broad range of landscapes as efficiently as possible. Thanks. So speaking of that range of campus, we've got a lot of different ground types on campus depending on how the space is used, what the history of the buildings are. In many areas, we've replaced turf with more desert-appropriate plants, but we do have a significant amount of turf that's left because it's really down to that multi-purpose turf that serves for hosting our intramural sports like soccer and football, hosts our community events, and then also, as you can see in this picture for the student recreation field, hosts our students who are in the ROTC program for their training. So with all this turf, but also with the xeriscaping that we have, the modern control system that we're looking for is really going to help us support all these landscapes as efficiently as possible. Next slide, please. So some metrics for the impact on this. Our campus grounds use about 200 acre-feet per year for outdoor irrigation. We've estimated this based on the water that comes into campus, and we meter our wastewater, so we can get that number. We don't have exact savings put forth because of all the different types of hand watering and standalone old clock controllers, but we are estimating about 5 to 10 acre-feet per year from this grant. And then that's going to expand to 20 to 40 acre-feet per year if we cover the whole campus, which I'll talk about in the next slide, please. Actually, sorry, just to go back quickly, we are planning to install flow sensors for this new project. And then we're also working to better track our indoor water use with 90 meters on campus buildings. And now next slide, please. So thanks. This grant, we're requesting $150,000. And then we're going to match that right up front with another $150,000. And of course, provide ongoing operations and maintenance of the system. So our irrigation master plan broke the campus up into quadrants, and this project right now, sort of this phase, is going to focus on the southeast quadrant. Our goal with this is to move from planning to implementation and really unlock the entire campus by demonstrating a successful project and the great benefits it's going to have. So the double match upfront is going to end up as an 8-fold match by the time we implement the overall campus. Next slide, please. Thank you. So some details for how we're planning to spend this grant funding. The grant is going to go towards purchasing the new controllers. And these controllers are going to be aggregating multiple different zones into a few larger zones. And so all that aggregation is going to cost quite a bit for the trenching, and the wiring to bring these into sort of master zones, or excuse me, overall controllers. And then on the ASU side, we're going to be finishing up the costs for those, the trenching, wiring, connection, as well as the sort of ground level design fees for putting the system together, bringing in some of the existing smart controllers into our new system so that it's all a cohesive unit. And then of course, project management to make sure this all happens overall with minimal impact to our student body. One more slide, thanks. So connecting this back to the groundwater, the city of Tempe provides our water on the Tempe campus, and groundwater in Tempe really varies based on how much surface water is available. But really, Tempe relies on groundwater to meet demand when there's times of water stress, pumping extra water from the ground to make sure that our customers, or Tempe customers, are all served. This proposed system is going to reduce our consumptive water use on a permanent, ongoing, year-round basis. And that's really, there's 2 points there. Outdoor water use is consumptive. Once you use it, it's gone, as opposed to indoor water use that's going to get reclaimed down the line. And then this system is going to be operating sort of year-round, 24/7, which really saves surface water and lets the surface water we have go farther, eliminating or reducing Tempe's need to rely on groundwater. At the end of the day, this reduced water use conserves groundwater for future needs and droughts. Next slide. So just in summary, we're proposing a modern control system to reduce our consumptive outdoor water use for irrigation on the Tempe campus. We're going to match that right up front, as well as provide operational support over time. And then our goal is to leverage this up to 8-fold to drive long-term campus-wide implementation. And that's it. One slide. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing any questions you might have.
Alex, this is Stephen. A quick question. In terms of your timing of implementation, did I read it correctly that your schedule is going to be dictated by college management versus having the ability to block off areas and go in and effectively work without conflict with students and administration?
That would have been our application. Now with some of the changes from all of the COVID shutdown, we've been able to do a lot more work a lot more quickly. So I don't know that that would exactly pertain. And then if this grant has certain timelines we need to meet, I'm sure we could meet them accordingly.
Very good, very good. Frank, any questions? Dave, any questions?
Hey, hang on a second. I was just busy unmuting.
Okay, Frank?
Really have the same question of every applicant, which is how do you plan to account for, accumulate, and capture the groundwater savings? Is there an aspect or an element of the grant in which you would report back on groundwater savings that occurred either in the first year or first 5 years due to implementation of this grant?
We'll have flow sensor data for water use overall, and so we can determine savings. And I would argue that all of the water saved is ultimately groundwater because we always use as much of our surface water as possible. And then go groundwater.
All of this water is City of Tempe water. You don't have ASU pumps.
On the Tempe campus, we don't have any sort of private wells.
So what you're saying is if there's a net savings due to this project, and assuming the Tempe uses groundwater, that it would come out of that groundwater.
Correct.
And you're going to do a projected savings from this that you might be able to report back on in the future?
Yes. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of progress reports for the grant that we would be filing.
And you have multiple metering situations with Tempe so that you would be able to tell how much water goes into the project area.
Not precisely with the current setup. If we do a full implementation, then we would be covered.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Dave, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. Alex, can you hear me?
Yes.
How much involvement will Corey Hockey have in this project?
I report to Corey, so to the extent of that, but most of this work has been done. I work with our ground staff and our facilities management staff, so I report directly with them.
Well, the reason why I raise this, and Melissa, you need to listen to this as well as I know, is I wasn't aware that Corey is Alex's boss, and Corey happens to be on the board for SRP. And since I work for SRP and often see Corey a lot, I probably ought to recuse myself from participating in this one only because of that linkage. So I will refrain from sort of voting and evaluating this application. I think it's the best that I did.
Okay, Dave. And Mr. Rayner, questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Enav, any questions?
We do not have any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we are officially finished with this project, and we want to thank Alex and Corey for their assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's move on to project number 2, which happens to be project 2, 3, 4, 5. But we'll start with project number 2, which is Arizona Water Company's AMR meter replacement project in the Phoenix AMA. Do we have somebody from Arizona Water Company?
Robert Romo is going to be presenting the AMR meter replacement project.
Mr. Romo, you should be unmuted. Now you should be unmuted, so go ahead. We still can't hear you for some reason.
Is he doing, Melissa, is he doing all 4 of the presentations for Arizona Water Company?
No, he's just doing the AMR meter replacement.
Is the applicant speaker for the ESRI ArcGIS field rollout project there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes,
Yes, we can. Please identify yourself, and you have 10 minutes.
And before that, let me ask for Mr. Romo to please log out and try logging back in. So hopefully that would help clear the issue, and then we can come back to your presentation, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, Chairman Cleveland and Committee. I am Clayton Weil, GIS Analyst for Arizona Water Company. And I wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to present our ESRI GIS field rollout project for our groundwater conservation grant. This will be a great opportunity for Arizona Water Company. So again, I just wanted to say thank you. And then I'll go ahead and wait until I got my slides up. Okay. Arizona Water Company is requesting this grant to aid ESRI ArcGIS technology. The stated goal of the grant requirements was to be able to show a reduction in groundwater use over time due to the implementation of the project. So we'll just stay on this slide. Arizona Water Company has many operational and planning goals associated with the ArcGIS project. For this grant proposal, Arizona Water Company is focusing on locational leak detection and repair data collection to help drive the reduction in groundwater use. Arizona Water Company intends to migrate infrastructure data and implement the ArcGIS enterprise platform so that our coworkers will have an ability to view our underground utility systems, geocode found leaks, and repair them in real time. Field management will be able to monitor our existing leak detection and repair program success, and operations analysts will be able to use collected data to monitor the effect of repaired leaks on groundwater pumping. Finally, planners will have the near-time geographic data to develop capital improvement projects. So you can go to the next slide, please. Arizona Water Company operates 22 water systems in the state of Arizona. 8 of those systems are inside an AMA. We have a very limited version of ArcGIS currently, and with this grant, we would be able to expand our GIS program to include more operational features. In this graphic, the bright blue outlines indicate our 22 systems and the associated service areas. Arizona Water Company provides reliable, affordable water all over Arizona. Next slide. In the Phoenix AMA, AWC operates 3 large municipal water systems, Apache Junction, Superior, and White Tank. In these 3 systems, there are 26,746 connections, and the systems are spread out on either side of the AMA, with the White Tank system being in Maricopa County, in and Apache Junction in Superior Systems in Pinal County. On the map, the turquoise represents the AMA boundary and the gray line represents the county boundary. Next slide. This project is an enterprise-wide project that will aim to migrate our existing CAD data into Esri Enterprise. We will create a direct field worker to database collection connection using Esri field applications such as the Collector app, which allows workers to enter leak location data or well production meters in real time. The project will also allow us to create a central database for assets such as valves, pumps, wells, and tanks. The results of implementing the platform and apps will result in better data management for our repair and replacement of physical assets. It provides locating and monitoring of main and service line repairs will reduce overall water loss. Big goal here is less water loss in our distribution system results in less pumping from production groundwater wells. Next slide. More positive outcomes of implementing this project are listed on the slide. Our organization has multiple systems, and this project will help us modernize how we monitor our aging infrastructure. We'll be able to collect real-time leak and repair data. We will be able to analyze leak detection program success in a more efficient manner. The data collected will help us to plan for capital infrastructure replacement projects. While we currently collect groundwater pumping data, we intend to use the system to visualize the results in a variety of different ways so coworkers can better see the system health. And lastly, we will have the ability to visualize each system to better present conservation messages that are relevant to full-time residents or part-time residents. Each system we have in the Phoenix AMA is unique, and we want to be able to tailor messaging. Next slide. Let's see, where are we at? Okay. In the following two slides, we show the assets in Arizona Water Company as recorded currently. We are a statewide concern. The ability to collect data and maintain it in real time becomes an important task for our field employees. The explosive growth in our service areas has made it more difficult to manage all of these assets appropriately, and we believe that implementing this ArcGIS will help our coworkers manage these assets more efficiently. Next slide. With the implementation of the ArcGIS platform, we intend to migrate our existing data information and verify in the field additional information such as physical locations, field numbers, inspection dates, and maintenance records. Next slide. The overall cost of this project is planned at $770,898. The Phoenix AMA WMAP grant cost share request is $110,898.32, or $4.14 per Phoenix AMA connection. As mentioned in the previous slide, the majority of the project costs will be borne by Arizona Water Company. We have applied for the WMAP grant in all three AMAs where we have our systems. We decided to use the cost per connection since it seems to be the most equatable and transparent way to determine and make the grant dollar request. Next slide. One of the stipulations in the grant package was that the project must demonstrate a quantifiable groundwater savings. Arizona Water Company believes that this implementation of the project will give us an increased system visibility with a real-time collection of leak and repair data. We also will be collecting production well meter reads. When we compare this collected data with the sales data, we'll be able to see clearly the reduction in pumping. Of course, there are many variables outside our control, such as weather, but having the ability to work and make repairs more quickly should present us with a decreased pumping because more water is kept in the distribution system. In the application document, we have a conservative plan to reduce groundwater pumping by 2% per year, giving us a savings of 780 acre feet for our Phoenix AMA and 2,060 acre feet across all three AMAs during the 4-year grant reporting period. Lastly, an added benefit to implementing this project has to do with the communities that we serve. Many of them they're already using ArcGIS for their municipal purposes, so it's going to make sense that we also implement the same product so that we can better facilitate the movement of our data for visualization and planning. So lastly, we are excited to move forward with our project, and we hope that Groundwater Users Advisory Committee will recommend it to the Director of Water Resources to receive the Water Management Assistant Program Groundwater Conservation Grant. Thank you for your time.
This is Stephen, the chair. I do have a quick question. You have stated, and I think it will be stated again in a couple of the other projects, that you have sought monies from 3 AMAs, basically on a percentage scale. If the 3 AMAs do not fund all your projects, then how do you make certain that the monies at the Phoenix AMA go for Phoenix AMA activities and do not end up in another AMA?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Cleveland. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for your question. With that, I think I need to go back and kind of talk with my team to really give you a solid answer. Is that okay? If I can talk with them, and I'm kind of more of the technical person.
Sure.
With the GIS, so I kind of wanted to also kind of present my findings, but also it'll be good to have me kind of go back and talk to the team so I can give you a solid answer. Is that okay?
No, that's perfect. You got 26,800 customers in Maricopa County and 31,000 in Canal, and you show 110, 128,000 respectively in terms of application, or in terms of application amount. Just it would be appropriate to take it back, and it would be appropriate to have that conversation with staff, Anov and Melissa.
If I could,
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Darren Allen. I'm Vice President of Operations for Arizona Water, and I was listening. Whatever we get in an AMA will stay in that AMA. If we don't get something in one of the other AMAs, that will just be company funded.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
Yeah, we're just trying to get this so that it's less of a burden on the customer.
Sure. Thanks for the observation and that commitment. Frank Fairbanks, do you have questions?
This is Frank Fairbanks, and I'm looking at water conservation or groundwater savings. And I heard you say that you're projecting 780 acre feet in groundwater savings over 4 years, which when I divide it by 4 was 195 acre feet a year. Are you saying that your goal is that you would get 195 acre feet a year on average saving from this system? And that's this savings would be separate from any savings you would get from your other grants.
Mr. Fairbanks, this is Melinda Whittington from Arizona Water Company Operations Analyst. Yes, that's true. We do plan to record our savings by AMA and by system. We already report that information annually, so we'll be able to very easily see the pre-value and the post values annually.
And that's the 195 is for the Phoenix AMA or for the whole system on an annual basis?
It would be for the 760 acre feet would be for the Phoenix AMA.
Okay. Oh, and so you'll be capturing this data and reporting to us the actual results you achieve?
Correct.
Thank you.
welcome.
Dave Roberts, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Linda, back to that question about figuring out how much groundwater savings. How will you determine that the GIS software has led to that savings of groundwater?
Currently, we're utilizing estimated leak data when we find underground leaks. So we're capturing that on a monthly basis as it is. So we feel like when we're able to utilize the GIS data, we'll be able to find those leaks quicker and repair them faster based on, and calculate the savings based on the measured loss, the calculated loss.
So you'll be able to, so if you understand that correctly, you'll be able to determine the leaks faster because you'll have a spatial element to your software as opposed to a system now that doesn't?
Correct. And we're planning to leverage a second project that you'll be hearing about later with leak detection equipment that would be able to leverage against ESRI. So we've got so much more data coming in that we'll be able to visualize and get to those projects quicker.
Okay. Do you know if other municipal water providers in the Phoenix AMA utilize a very similar software or the exact same software?
I know that for the city of Scottsdale, they had have something similar, and that's only because I worked there several years ago. So I'm not really sure where they are in comparison to us, but I know that it is something that we wanted to do to kind of get in conjunction with the planning departments as well in the communities we serve.
And if I might add, EPCOR has a very similar platform that they use, also.
Okay. I'm just trying to determine if this is kind of the best management practice for cities or municipal water providers in locating leaks and trying to repair them because they have that spatial element, and whether or not this is the best software or if there's some others or how these all compare. It would be nice to have some data about that just to know that this is something that's a wise investment. I mean, I think it is. I just am trying to get my arms around it relative to how it works to save the water.
Yeah, it's applicable to a lot of things. Actually, one of the projects Clayton worked on for me was he accessed the state health services website data to put the map where they track the virus by zip code, and put our CCNNs on the map. And so now we can go inside the CCNNs and actually see the activity there. So there's a lot of applications for it, definitely water resource management. We plan in the future to have a computerized maintenance management system that will work in conjunction with the S3, where we'll be able to manage our assets better. You'll be able to touch on a section of water main, and you'll get all the repairs that have been done, when it was installed, and it gives us a better tool to replace old assets before they start failing. So this has the potential to really, really be something good for not only our company, but the customers and the water resources of Arizona.
Okay, we need to move forward. Hate to cut you off, but if you have any other information, please provide it to staff that we could use to give to everybody. Mr. Rayner, do you have any comments, questions?
I am curious about one thing. Does Arizona Water Company have to buy replenishment credits for all of the water that they pump? Was my question clear?
Melinda, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Mr. Rayner, we have CAP allocations, so we do annual storage and recovery. So we don't buy credits at this time.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that I was wondering about is if there was an additional value to saving water. If it's not pumped in the first place, then you would also not have to replenish that water that was not pumped. So, I mean, there was actually a doubling of cost or value, not only the cost of pumping, but the value of buying credits to replenish them.
Agreed. We would have more available for groundwater savings facility or just normal underground storage for the year. We haven't been able to accrue credits because we're an annual replenish and recovery company. So I'm not sure if that would be true.
And if I may, it'll have the effect of reducing electric cost, extending the life of wells and motors. So there's a lot more benefit than just the water savings. It just builds itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Darren. Staff has given me a high sign. We need to move forward. Thanks for your input and your comments. It's very educational. Who from Arizona Water Company is going to present the AMR meter replacement project?
Robert?
If he's having problems, I can walk through it. This is Darren.
Well, if you want it, we can continue to move you to the back of the bus, as it were, since you have three projects pending.
Well, in the interest of time, I can go ahead and do it.
Okay, Darren. So please speak to the meter replacement project.
Okay. Currently, we have direct read meters in most of our systems. And if they could put the next slide up, what we've done is we did a test in Tierra Grande, and what we found is the AMRs did help us reduce water usage because it takes human error out, and they were also new meters. And so we've seen that there was a great effort or strengthening of the conservation. And you get a much improved meter efficiency. Meter readers, what would have taken them 8 hours to do, we now can do in about an hour, maybe a half hour. So next slide. You can see the different systems that we have in our Phoenix AMA. We have Apache Junction, Superior, and White Tanks. Next slide. The Apache Junction city also serves not just the city of Apache Junction, but Gold Canyon, and there's a small piece of Mesa that we serve. There's over 21,300 service connections. The water system does have some rural area to it, but there's also high density residential and quite a bit of commercial activity. The meter readers are covering almost 150 miles a month each in Apache Junction and Gold Canyon areas. Next slide. The town of Superior is really a challenge. The water source for this is actually located past Florence Junction. We pump the water 24 miles and I think roughly 1,600 feet of elevation to the town of Superior. Pressures at that pump station are upwards of 680, 700 PSI. We do it with one lift. We're actually in the process of putting some other boosters so that we could reduce that. The town of Superior is 1,300 connections. And in there, and this is a problem in a lot of the small communities, you have meters that were put in alleys. People put fences up and you can't get to them for the direct read. With the AMR system, you'd be able to just drive by or walk by and it would automatically pick up the read. And it also has other information. It becomes available. Next slide. The white tank system is one of our newer systems, but it's also our fastest growing. And it sets just over towards the north side of the I-10 for the most part. There's 4,000 connections, but that system this year has grown roughly 360 to 370 customers a month. So it's very, very quick growing system. There is a little rule to it, but a lot of it is neighborhoods. But in this particular location, we're trying to really promote conservation, because one of the growth, if we can promote more and more conservation, especially with the AMR meters, we'll eventually be able to build on a platform where customers will be able to access their own usage data with the AMI systems. That will be the next generation for us. And we see that being really big in the white tank area. Next slide. And this is the pilot program I was telling you about. We did in 2014 with the Tierra Grande. We installed nearly 400 meters that were 70 of them were census. These are manufacturing type. There was 160 that were Neptune, 159 that were Badger, and they were all outfitted with Itron electric radio transmitters. And what we have is a handheld that the meter readers can enter direct dial or direct read readings, or they just do the radio read with the AMR. And what we found is we had a pretty good savings. We were, like I mentioned earlier, we take out the element of human error, and we saved approximately 20 acre feet a year after the technology was installed. And it actually helped us determine what meter we were going to go with moving forward as part of this project, and that was the census. The census has a lot more capabilities. There's a lot more options that we can allow the customers to look at their information. And once we get to the next generation, they'll be able to get instantaneous reads from their telephone, their cell phone. They could be at work and see that, why is their water being used? Well, they have a commode leak, and that commode leak could add hundreds of dollars to their water bill over a month. So next slide. This is a little more about the testing. And you can see where the test results. This is another reason we went with the census. They provided a lot more accuracy. The design of them are, we have a meter shop in Coolidge that supports all of our 22 operations. And they put a lot of the stress tests on the meters through how much water they could read. We follow the American Water Works Association criteria for specifications on low flow accuracy, intermediate, and high flow. And this gives you a little bit of a result of what those technicians found. Next slide. Here you can see the Tierra Grande groundwater pre and post AMR. The average number of customers had continued to go up, but you can see the average groundwater pumping in acre feet dropped. So it's pretty substantial. And another thing is, this is impressive in this generation of meter, but the next generation is even more spectacular. It's just that you really need to, in the water business, you got to go in these steps, or the cost that the company bears and ultimately the customer bears is pretty significant. And that's why you'll hear me talk about these steps. Next slide. Here's the meter shop I was telling you about, the two technicians. We perform tests on meters that we pull out as part of our meter replacement program. And that program varies. Currently in the northern areas, we go 12 to 15 years before we replace a meter, 12 to 15 years in 1 million gallons. In the valley, where there's a lot more water use with irrigation and pools and that, we typically do what they do across the industry. It's a 10-year 1 million gallon touch point where we replace the meters, and we test those. Once we bring them back in, to see if we validate the need to replace them, because they are expensive and it does fall back on the customers. And we're starting to see where these meters are being built today at higher standards and they will go longer. So we actually may be able to extend the life of the meters we're installing in the valley by 50% in the near future. And these radio read meters will definitely help us see that. So next slide. As I said, the company's already invested into a platform. We're in the process of installing the software and making upgrades. Melinda actually is part of our meter reader training on the new handhelds. There's smart point transmitter that shows you kind of what it looks like. You can see the pictures aren't the best on the reading devices, but you also see a third picture with meters with the electronic registers. It's got a battery saving method built into it where we just shine a light on it and it turns the face piece on. So this is another thing that's going to go into making the meter last longer because the batteries are so hard to change and they're such a style that it's almost easier to change the meter. So if the battery life it matches the life of the meter, it's going to be even better. And I can tell you, when I was working in the Midwest 8 or so years ago, one of the problems we had with the AMR meters at that time was the battery going out in them. And so the battery life has changed dramatically, and we validated that in our Terra Grande test. Next slide. This kind of shows you what AMI will do. You can have a transmitter receiver and you can send out information to the meters and get it back in. Customers will be able to get on with their platform, either a phone device or a laptop, and be able to look at their accounts, get more information with the AMR, and eventually the same receiving and transmitting will be used in the AMI. So that piece of the equation goes from this stage to the next stage. And really the only thing we'd have to do if we decided 3 years from now to change to AMI and take that step, we just have to do a little bit of work with our software and the handhelds. So the next step would be a lot easier for us if we can go to AMR first. It's a lot less expensive up front. Next slide.
Mr. Allen, I'm really sorry and I hate to rush you, but you're out of time. So if you have one last sentence to sum up, and then we'll move on to the questions.
Yeah, one last piece of this. This is just going to be used to help fund this. The company is going to make up the funds because we have to change the meters according to different timelines and stuff. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Steve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. All right, Frank, go ahead.
So, make sure. Okay. How are you going to capture groundwater savings? Are you going to look to what you did earlier during your presentation is subtract what you're pumping in the future compared to what you pumped in the past? Or how are you going to capture your groundwater savings?
Yeah, that's the easy part. We had, like in Terra Grande, we've seen where we were pumping pre-study. We looked at what we were pumping each month after that. We record those. And through the study, you can see a slow change to reducing the amount of groundwater that we were pumping from our wells. And that system, and all of our systems right now are 100% groundwater. So it's pretty easy for us to track that and analyze it.
And is there duplication here? So when you're subtracting numbers, let's say you got all 3 of your projects funded and implemented, how do you separate what the savings would be from the meters as opposed to what for the ESRI system, and how much is for the leak detection? Do you have a method for separating those savings?
Yeah, what you could do, the savings in Tierra Grande, we simply looked on customer usage. So the AMR is directed straight at the customer, so we can see that. The leak detection we'll get into in a minute, but that's going to find leaks quicker and be able to get to it and fix it and dig one hole instead of three. The ESRI, on the other hand, is to help not only show where these are occurring, but help us plan out replacing those assets. Because if we see, we have.
You do have a way to separate savings from those three different.
Yeah, the ESRI will be able to see, well, we average 3 breaks every 2 years on this, and it looks like we average 200 gallon a minute leaks. Well, if we replace that, well, that pipe should be good for another 20 to 50 years. So it's going to provide not only a savings in this 4-year period, but it's on out, and the ESRI will be able to show us that.
We got a time pressure on us, but the last thing I'm going to ask is, do you have a specific goal or target for what your savings are for this meter project on an annual basis within this AMA?
Yeah, and it's going to be different with each of the systems. And
looking for the meter project.
Yeah, specific to the meter project, what we've seen in Terra Grande was 10 to 20% reduction. We would like to see that across the board.
In acre feet, how much would that 10 or 20% be? And then all the other.
The Terra Grande was 20 acre feet. So when you look at Apache Junction, literally it would probably be 10 times that. It'd probably be more like 300 acre feet. Melinda, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Superior would be about the same. It would be about 15 to 20 acre feet. So that would be in White Tank. I would probably say that it would be about the it would be between the Terra Grande and Apache Junction. So that would probably be something on the order of 180 to 250 acre feet, roughly.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your answer.
Okay, we need to move quickly. David, quick question, and Ron, quick question.
So Darren, those numbers in terms of acre feet that you could save, that would assume that you did all, let's say for Apache Junction, all 21,300 connections, but you're not planning to do that here, are you?
That's a good point. No, because they're up to date with their meter change out, their meter replacement program. And what we do is we roughly change 10% of the meters out because they're on a 10-year cycle. So we do 10% a year. And we're in the process with the ACC of looking at extending that. But we would be changing out the meters according to the meter replacement that the ACC sets for us. And at this time, that's roughly 10%. So that would be what we would change a year. And so when I gave you that estimate, that's if we get to the future of having all 21,000, which we are going to do, but it's going to be over a 10 to 15-year period.
Very good. Very good.
That's a good question.
So these, where are these 1,452 going to go? Do you know? Any idea?
Are you referring to the Terra Grande?
No, the meters.
Slide, you have 352 meters at $60 a meter, it looks like.
We would place them. Terra Grande is in a different AMA. Those would specifically be in the Superior, Apache Junction, and White Tank areas.
Okay, but there's no identified specific spot, like
no.
For
example, no, we would cover as much as we could. I don't think Apache Junction spends probably close to $400,000 annually on meter replacements. So I would probably put these in this all in the system where we could get the best results in reducing water usage, and that would be the location where the per customer usage is the highest. And out of those, it would be Apache Junction and White Tank.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank
Mr.
you.
Rayner, any comments, questions?
But my question would just be along the same lines as the last question. That $60 price, see, those are just for electronic registers. Those are not for new meters, correct?
That is a good point. Yes, those are just for the transmitter and the new face.
Yeah, I guess my point would be that the meters that they're going on, are they the more sensitive meter? What I was wondering about was if that was simply a labor saving expense rather than, you know, obtaining a more accurate water measurement.
No, the company itself will fund the labor portion. Once we went to the census meters a few years ago, we went with the platform that will allow us to add transmitters to them, so we can change them according to what we can budget. And we haven't got to that point yet because we still have a lot of other older meters that won't be able to take that platform.
Yeah, but my point was the meter reading, the electronic sensor saves the company labor in reading the meters.
Yes.
And time. So it's not exactly a water saving measure. It's a more efficient way of reading meters for the company.
Yes. That definitely is the short term. The long term is it gets us to the next stage where customers will be able to get instantaneous water usage. They may have forgot to reset their irrigation timer in the winter, and they may be still irrigating with the summer in mind, and they could say, well, they could look back and say, well, last year this time I was using less water. Why is that? And we even do free water audits to help them find issues like that. But this is helping us get there, and the information that AMR captures will give them some of that, but just not instantaneous yet. They'll be able to see that, but like I said, after a month, it wouldn't be instantaneous.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for the conversation. We're now ready to move on to the fourth project. I believe it is the water detection equipment replacement. Is that correct, staff?
That is correct, Chair Cleveland.
Okay, so Darren, are you still involved in this?
Yeah, I'm not the one. Lee Hetrick is going to do the leak detection presentation.
Is he ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go
Okay,
ahead.
good.
I will be available for questions, though.
You're going to be out of the room. Okay, we understand. Okay, Lee, please.
Thank you.
You got 10 minutes.
Hello and greetings to Stephen and the committee. My name is Lee Hetrick, and I'm a division manager for Arizona Water Company. And I want to thank you guys for the opportunity for this presentation. This is the presentation for the leak detection equipment replacement. Slide 2, please. Okay, slide 2. Yeah, we're not on my. There we go, right there. Whoop, slide 2, next one. Right there. Okay. Arizona Water Company is requesting a grant to purchase new leak detection equipment to replace the current equipment, which has reached the end of its useful life. As part of the third and fourth management plans for AMAs in Arizona, a comprehensive leak detection program is listed in category 4 of best management practices for physical system evaluation and improvement. Arizona Water Company has consistently been working to expand the effectiveness of its leak detection programs, not only in the systems in Arizona. This grant will allow for the company to purchase new sets of equipment for the Phoenix AMA systems. The equipment sets consist of correlators, loggers, and ground microphones. Next slide, please. Arizona Water Company operates 22 systems in the state of Arizona and serves a population of approximately 250,000. In the Phoenix active management area, the company has 3 water systems: Apache Junction, Superior, and White Tanks. in a water distribution system, that I want to make something clear. I'm going to talk about leaks quite a bit, and the leaks I'm talking about are leaks that don't come to the surface. You don't see them, you don't know you have them until you use equipment to detect them. In a water distribution system that has never used leak detection equipment, the water loss can exceed 30% of the water pumped from its production wells. The water loss from each non-surfacing leak will increase with time, and new leaks from aging pipelines occur continually. Typical non-surfacing water leaks range in size from 1/2 gallon per minute to 20 gallons per minute. Water these leaks, consider that a small leak of just 1/2 gallon per minute will lose 260,000 gallons in a year if gone unnoticed. A 10 gallon per minute leak is equal to 5,265,000 gallons or 16 acre feet of lost water in a year that you don't know about. Next slide. Thank you. With water resources being increasingly stressed due to climate change and growing populations, water utilities must become water efficient throughout the entire supply process. By employing improved methods of water loss control, water utilities have the potential to reduce the large volumes of groundwater that are lost to leakage. Water loss control is an increasingly important field of practice that is being heavily promoted within the drinking water utility industry. Next slide, please. Not all water leakage on underground mains and service lines finds its way to the surface. Large quantities of water are lost each day from leaks that are not detected because the lost water does not surface. This is a visualization of the sound that an underground leak makes when using leak detection equipment in the field. Next slide, please. Locating and repairing the non-surfacing water leaks in the distribution system is vitally important conservation endeavor. Identifying non-surfacing water leaks is very challenging and requires a considerable number of experienced staff, plus the use of advanced leak detection equipment. Arizona Water Company has a proven track record of finding non-surfacing leaks using portable correlators, loggers, and geophones to progress across the entire distribution system to search for pipeline leaks. The equipment is attached along the way, such as curb stop valves, mainline valves, and fire hydrants. In any water distribution system, this is a daunting task because the entire distribution system must be covered from beginning to end and over and over. In the case of the Apache Junction system, there's 388 miles of main and service lines, so the process can take many months or even exceed a year's time, and then it must be repeated. Our white tank system has 85 miles and Superior has approximately 45 miles of pipe. In order to effectively find and identify non-surfacing leaks, modern equipment must be used. Next slide, please. Our equipment replacement project for Phoenix AMA includes a variety of equipment for each of the systems inside the AMA. The total project cost is $240,623, and Arizona Water Company is requesting the grant cost share be $120,311. Apache Junction and Superior system employees work together, and the equipment is combined. We want to combine the equipment for Apache Junction and Superior. So I'll list off the equipment here and systems it's going to be used in. 4 Ecologics for Apache Junction Superior, 2 Ecologics for white tanks, 3 geophones for Apache Junction Superior, 2 geophones for white tanks, 2 Z-Core loggers for Apache Junction Superior, 1 Z-Core logger for white tanks, 3 tablets for Apache Junction Superior, and 2 tablets for white tanks. Next slide, please. Arizona Water Company, its well production and conservation efforts annually for each of its systems. The lost and unaccounted for water is also reported. It will be clear to see pre-project implementation and post-project implementation groundwater savings based on repaired or replaced pipe. While it is unrealistic to anticipate that the unaccounted for water loss will be 0%, it is realistic to anticipate a 2 to 3% reduction in unaccounted for lost water. The example of groundwater savings using a conservative 2% on the table below shows that the company can plan to save 2,060 acre feet over a 4-year term. As an example of the effectiveness of new leak finding equipment, the Apache Junction system implemented one new ecologic leak finder RT correlator set in 2016 and found that the equipment helped it reduce its lost and unaccounted for water to 6.8% in 2017, which was down from 10.64% in 2014. Next slide, please. We are excited to move forward with our project, and we hope that the Groundwater User Advisory Committee will recommend it to the Director of Water Resources to receive the Water Management Assistance Program Groundwater Conservation Grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. We need to limit our time. I mean, we have limited time for Q&A now, but Frank, do you have any questions?
I'm impressed with the groundwater savings data on this project, so no question on that. Real quickly, there was 120,000 grant requested. Is there a similar amount that would be invested from your firm, or is the entire project to be financed through grant?
The total project cost is $240,623.
Thank you. You just answered my question. I appreciate it.
Very good.
Okay. Mr. Roberts.
Well, the only question I have is that I think I've seen that 2% number before through one of the other presentations. It seems to me that all of these projects that you've talked about so far, all 3 of them, sort of all get to that 2% or some number close to that in terms of savings of water. So from my perspective, I sort of have to look at these all together as working all collaboratively to get to that number. I'm all about detecting leaks because I think that's one of the big unknowns that we have, is not being able to quickly identify those and take care of them. So I'm supportive of this project. I will just be looking at it from the perspective of all 3 of these together. So, all right.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. Rayner.
I do have one question, and it pertains actually to all of the proposals from Arizona Water Company. If I understand, you're organized as a public utility, and you're subject to rate setting by the Corporation Commission. And from what I understand, you log all of your asset costs into a sheet that you present when you're looking for your rate of return on those assets. I guess one of the things that I would be concerned about is that any monies that came from this public trough that went into your public entity, that those monies not be counted as part of your asset, then that you're guaranteed a return on. So I would want to make sure that any monies that were contributed from this public pot would genuinely be a grant and not show up as part of your costs of putting new assets into play.
I can defer to Darren on this.
Yeah.
Question to answer.
Sure, go ahead and have him chat with ADWR staff about that point, if you would.
Yeah, I can answer it if you want me to right now.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, any contributed property does not go on to the asset list where the company earns return off of investment. That's the same with facilities like water plants, water mains, everything. This would be an asset we help, but it would not go towards a water bill. at least that portion of the grant. It would not go towards the water bill.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to move on, gentlemen. We're on to the last project from Arizona Water Company, Superior Transmission Water Main Valve Replacement and Water Loss Reduction Project. Enav, do we still have the available 10 minutes or do we need to cut them back to 8?
Let's move on with 10 just because we promised every presenter 10 minutes, but maybe members could limit their questions and be as concise as possible. And I would ask the presenters to also answer as concisely as possible. We could shorten our break a little bit, but as of now, we're not too far off our time.
Okay, so if any data has been talked about previously, let's not extend the conversation about a particular point. Let's just highlight it. Okay, who is the presenter for the Superior project?
James Wilson. Can you hear me?
James?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Great, thank you. And maybe I can help out a little bit on the time as well. My presentation, I think, is a little bit shorter than the others. Good afternoon, Chairman Cleveland, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to present our grant application. Again, my name is James Wilson. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Arizona Water Company's Superstition Division. Just a quick background on myself. I've been with the company for a little bit over 20 years. Have a professional engineer's license in mechanical engineering, grade 4 water treatment, and grade 3 water distribution certifications. And I'll be presenting the company's grant application to conserve groundwater through valve replacement on our Superior transmission main. Next slide, please. All right. Sorry. All right. Arizona Water Company is requesting a grant in the amount of $90,000 to partially fund the installation of 3 new high-pressure gate valves on a 26-mile-long transmission main in the Superior water system. These new valves will reduce water loss and groundwater pumping by reducing the length of main that must be drained and flushed when performing repairs. Arizona Water Company will contribute $45,000 to the total estimated construction cost of $135,000. Next slide, please. Just some background on the system. This map gives you an idea of where the Superior water system is located. The dark blue line on the map indicates our Superstition Division service area, and Apache Junction is located kind of in the northwestern area of the service area, and Superior's the southern and southeastern portion of the service area. And as you can see, all of it is located within the Phoenix AMA, which is shaded in light blue. Next slide, please. Okay, this next map provides a closer view of the Superior water system. Our transmission main is shown in blue. Some of the, or all of the existing butterfly valves are shown with purple circles with an X inside it. And the valves that we've already replaced with gate valves are shown with black circles with X's in them. And then the green dots, the 3 green dots that you see are the 3 valves that we're proposing to replace as a part of this grant. Superior water systems starts southwest of Florence Junction and stretches all the way to the town of Superior, which I can't see it on my screen here, but is outlined in yellow. And all of the water for Superior comes from 3 wells that pump from the East Salt River Valley subbasin. Groundwater is pumped through that 26-mile-long transmission main, which was constructed in the mid-1970s, making the pipe and the valves almost 50 years old. And because of that, we've been experiencing an increased number of leaks. And actually, I think Darren may have mentioned it before, but this pipeline actually operates at about 850 PSI. So we do have a leak. They're pretty big. And there's currently 25 valve locations on that transmission main. Next slide, please. Okay. As I mentioned, all these existing butterfly valves are very old. They're inoperable and obsolete, meaning we can no longer get repair parts for them. So these inoperable valves make it impossible to properly isolate the transmission main and significantly increase the length of main that must be drained and flushed every time we have to perform maintenance or repair. And actually this photo shows the leak we just recently had right next to that valve that's in the photo is one of the valves that we're proposing to replace. But because we couldn't get that valve to shut, we actually had to drain the corresponding section of main, I think more than doubling the amount of water that was lost to repair that leak. And I guess next slide, please. All right. So in 2006, as part of our water loss reduction program, we began replacing and installing new high pressure gate valves for better isolation. To date, we've installed 10 new valves, and our goal is to have them spaced at 1 mile intervals. We're starting with just replacing the valves that are there today, and after we get beyond that, we may add a couple here and there. The photo here is just one of the valves that we've already replaced. So this is what a new gate valve looks like. Next slide, please. So why is all this important? On average, it's necessary for the company to isolate and drain the transmission main for maintenance and repair approximately 4 times each year. Water loss can be as high as 69,000 gallons each time. That's just to drain the main. That equates to about 267,000 gallons annually. We've already budgeted to install 1 new valve this year. And of course, through the grant, we're requesting an additional $90,000 for 2 more valves. There is a typo on this page, but after valve replacement, water loss for maintenance and repair will be reduced to 44,000 per, not to 49,000, but that brings the maximum annual total down to 176,000 gallons, or a 36% reduction in water loss annually. So the scope of work for this project is pretty simple. We're proposing to replace 3 inoperable valves with new high pressure gate valves. Each valve costs $45,000 for a total project cost of $135,000. And as I mentioned, the company is funding $45,000 of that, and which is also already included in this year's budget. Next slide, please. Measures of success. One of the stipulations of the grant package is that the project must demonstrate a quantifiable groundwater savings. And the way we measure that or quantify that, we already have a water discharge record that we use every time we have a leak. All the leaks are put into our GIS system, and using that information, we can compare any future leaks and look at where we put the new valves and kind of compare that to what if the leak happened in that location without one of these new valves, what the difference would be in water loss. And so all of that is currently already being recorded. And that's pretty much all I have. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to present, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Very good, James. I will quickly ask one question. You have a 50-year-old system that has these 26 miles of pipe, essentially with 10 operative valves needing 16 replacement valves. You're requesting money for 2 to come out of the grant, 1 to come out of yours, leaving you a remainder of 13, and those 13 are going to take you another 13 years to replace.
Potentially, we try to budget for more than that each year, but it just kind of depends on other priorities. So some years we may get more, some years we may get less.
Sure. So my point is that you're seeking money from us to replace 2 of the 3 that you are budgeting for this next year.
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the gavel or the conversation over to Dave Roberts since he's on the screen.
I have no questions there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Frank.
You said you have a good method for tracking the water savings, and what is your estimated savings? Was it in gallons?
Yes, it was in gallons.
And what is the number for a year?
So it's going to, excuse me 1 second.
This project.
It's going to go down from 276,000 to, I think it was 176,000. So about 100,000 gallons a year is what we're projecting to save just from these 2 additional valves.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Ron, questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Ready to proceed on to a couple more of these before we reach our three.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a quick question for Arizona Water Company, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. So from the applications, we saw that the ESRI project and the leak detection project go hand in hand. So first, we just want to confirm that this is the case. Second, we wanted to ask if from some reason one would not be funded, will the other still be viable, or they have to be funded jointly to produce the benefits that you discussed? And lastly, my question is, out of the 4 projects, if only one could be funded, which one do you think will provide the most benefits to the Phoenix AMA?
Can I give that to you, Darren?
Absolutely. Good question. They do support each other, but they also, we look at this as individual projects. They of course, if we had all of them, it would give us a larger savings in groundwater use. I think it would really be hard for me to pick, but if I had to pick, it would be one of 2. It would be either the ESRI or the leak detection. I think that the quickest bang for the buck would definitely be leak detection. It would be nice to have them all to get a better reduction. And we are going to move forward with these projects. We were just looking for a way to achieve what we need to achieve with less impact on the customer's bill.
Sure.
But
project number 3 and 4 in our current list.
Yeah, the valves, really, that is a good one for Superior. It is an isolated system, but for the biggest bang for the buck would be ESRI and the leak detection. And the short-term benefit would be, of course, the leak detection.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your answer.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move on to the next project, which is the City of El Mirage Conservation Program? Who is going to speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Derek.
Okay, my name is Derek. I'm with City of El Mirage. I'm the conservation, part-time conservation, full-time compliance person there. So we can go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Okay, just a little quick background on City of El Mirage for those who are unfamiliar with the city. We're a West Valley suburb, about 10 square miles. We're mainly a residential community, and with the southern portion mainly being agriculture, and it's slowly being developed into a light industrial area. We average about 500 acre feet a year, or 5,000 acre feet a year for our city, right around there. Let's see, we serve a population about 40,000, and that does include about 5,000 in the regional towns as well. We are a designated assured water supply provider. And then we do have a very diverse portfolio on paper of long-term storage credits, CAP water, extinguishment credits. But our physical water, all of that comes from groundwater. We have about 9 well sites that we pump groundwater from. Next slide. Okay, our goal in seeking grant funding is to develop a comprehensive conservation program to provide education and resources to our constituents. Funding has been available in the past for water conservation purposes, but the mayor and council have acknowledged the importance of water conservation and have made it a strategic priority for the city. This year, coming up, we have a budget of about $10,000 for us to implement and support conservation programs within the city. Conservation programs, like those down in Tucson, have been estimated to save on 30% for the 30 years existence down there in Tucson. So for us, that would be about 38 gallons per day we could potentially save by implementing water conservation programs. So our approach for the grant funding would be to focus on 4 areas. In the Zero-Scape program, we're looking at some meter technology. A big component would be outreach and education. And then we also would like to implement some smart software as part of the program. Next slide. The way the budget breaks down, we're just looking for $150,000. For the Zero-Scape, that would equal about $52,500 is what that portion would go to. For outreach and education, that'd be about $20,000. And on Water Smart software, we're looking at $42,500. And for our automatic meter technology, we're looking at that is $35,000 for that. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the 4 areas we're focusing on. Zero-Scape, that would be a program. It would the funding would go to program development on education, and then also provide a residential rebate for customers. We would encourage low water use and also planting of trees versus turf. We've reached out to other cities, including Tempe, Mesa, Glendale. We discussed their programs. And that's something that we would like to implement here in El Mirage. Outdoor water use is a big component of water usage, especially in the summer. And any turf that we can remove would be direct savings by putting low water use plants. And the trees would also help to mitigate any heat island effects that say versus implementing just pure artificial turf. So we would encourage tree planting. Over 5 years, if we were to stay 10 acres feet a year of turf and remove that, that could be a potential 50 million gallons a year of water. And that's based off of estimates from other cities and what they have seen. The automatic meter part of that, we're looking to purchase about 100 meters. Right now, we being a smaller city, so the amount of time it takes to respond to leaks can sometimes allow for more water to be expelled out into the environment or into the ground. So automatic meter technology would allow us to remotely shut off meters or have the meters automatically detect and shut out the meter. And then that way we could get our operators out there to fix and kind of find out where the problem is. We would target high priority area. There are areas of Old Del Mirage and original town site Surprise that are on, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and some of that infrastructure has been around a long time. So we do see a lot of leaks in those areas. Implementing these first 100 meters would also provide data for us. And this could further support the implementation of the automatic meters throughout our whole system. It is planned to eventually convert the whole city to these meters, but this could help in support financially. And then we also looking to promote outreach and education component. This would be over 5 years for this program. So we look about $4,000 or $5,000 to spend each year on education and outreach. We like to team up with Project WET to provide education to the children and school age groups. We recently joined Water Use It Wisely. This would help us to continue that relationship with Water Use It Wisely. And then we've implemented our first conservation workshop in 2019. Due to COVID-19 circumstances, we have been unable to implement another conservation workshop. But if things continue, we may move this onto a digital format. But our first event was well attended. We had, I think, over 26 people attend our first event, which was great for a first time. We have started taking a survey. We have special events, 5 or 6 a year. We took one in January of the public. One of the questions we asked was, how important is conservation to you? About 85% of respondents rated at 4 or 5 on a scale of 1 through 5 as how important it was, which was great. And then also on a scale of 1 through 5, 5 being very interested. We asked them how interested they are in resources about conservation, and 86% rated either a 4 or 5. So we do recognize there's a need for outreach and education and some resources for the community. And then the last component would be Water Smart. This would be over 1 year. It'd be for the initial implementation of the software. Luckily, around the city, we have AMI equipment. In the past, when they replaced all their meters, they had the smarts to implement all the AMI equipment. So and it's just a matter of implementing the software. So the Water Smart technology, for those who are unaware, it's a water management tool to power customers, and it's shown to reduce water use by 5%. So for us, 5% saving would be about 165 acre feet a year we could potentially save. It provides customer access to the information. It provides convenience and transparency. And like I said, our AMI system is ready in place. And partial, so that funding would basically be the first year contract for that. And the city would be looking to continue that relationship with WaterSmart going forward. And then another portion of that funding would go to promote the program and provide outreach and education to the community so they can start using that software. Okay, next slide. And that's about it. Again, I'm Derek, Environmental Compliance with the City of El Mirage. I also have my director, Nick Roos, available to answer questions. And then Autumn Grooms, our Grants and Special Programs Administrator, will also be available answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. In the next 5 minutes, we have a couple questions we'd like to ask of you. And if Ron Rayner is prepared to start.
I don't have a question.
Dave Roberts.
I have a question about what the city does with their effluent.
Currently, we have recharge basins, so that is all being recharged. We recharge about a little over 2,000 acre feet a year.
Okay. I noticed that within the city there are large turf areas, not a lot of turf at residences, but large turf areas that are public or schools. Are those watered with effluent, or are those watered with your potable water?
That was potable water. We do not use our effluent at all for anything right now, except for recharge. So anything that is being watered is coming from our potable water supply.
Okay. Thank you.
Frank?
No question.
Okay. Derek, if you would please clarify, you commented and you showed in your previous slide that you had some projects that were 1 year in length, and then there were projects that were 5 years in length. Is the money taking 5 years to be spent, or is it all spent up front, but you're committing to program and reporting for the 5 years?
So for the xeriscape portion, that would be 5 year. We would use some of that money for education and for the first year. And then over the next 4 years, we'd be using that money to as rebates for commercial or residential rebates. And then the meter technology, that would be a 1 year. So that'd be that first initial purchase of the smart meters.
Okay.
And that would be about 100 one-time purchase. And then for outreach and education, that would be spent on every year for 5 years. So about $4,000 or $5,000 a year would be spent each year to fund education and outreach, a variety of programs there. And then the Water Smart would be for just the first year would be outreach, and then the initial implementation of the software for the first year.
Okay, any further questions, anyone?
I have one more question for Derek.
Yes, David?
There's an area that's within El Mirage, a service area called Dysart Ranchettes, which are the larger lots, which seems to have a lot of turf and a lot of outdoor water use. Is that provided by the city, or is that provided by some other source of water?
We do provide that water to the ranchette areas. That is not treated like our other potable drinking wells, and we just have a well that's just dedicated to irrigation.
Okay, and that's part of your 5,000 acre feet of water use?
Yes, that comes out of our 5,000 acre feet a year.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Derek, thank you and your staff for putting the package together and making the presentation.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, do we have a representative from EPCOR ready to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name is Doug Dunham. I'm the Water Resources Manager for EPCOR, and I'm here to discuss the Pecan Reclaim Line extension in the Johnson Utility Service area from our Pecan Wastewater Treatment Plant to the new Magma Irrigation and Drainage District. Next slide. So just kind of clarifying our role versus Johnson Utilities, we are the interim manager for Johnson Utilities. The Arizona Corporation Commission has asked us to come in and manage the utility under a couple of different decisions, and that interim manager decision became effective in August of 2018. So we are effectively running the utility on behalf of Johnson Utility and their customers. Next slide. So just to kind of give you an idea where Johnson is located, they are in the southeast valley near Queen Creek. The kind of purple, the blue and red hashed area, that kind of combination there is the overlapping of the water and wastewater service. The red areas are the wastewater service. Just to kind of give you an idea, the AMA location, the large hatched area just south of Queen Creek, where that line truncates across there, that's the southern border of the Phoenix AMA, and then below that is the Canal AMA. Next slide. So most of this is probably familiar with you all. Under the Lower Basin Drought Contingency Plan, Arizona agreed to take additional reductions in Colorado River water based on the various tiered elevations in Lake Mead. The majority of those reductions will fall on the lower priority Central Arizona project pools. That's primarily the agricultural water users. The state of Arizona and federal entities agreed to provide funding to assist in infrastructure development to facilitate groundwater use to partially offset DCP reductions for agricultural users. In addition, Arizona stakeholders also pledged some higher priority CAP supplies to temporarily offset impacts to agricultural users. Those agreements extend through 2026. This specific project was included as part of that DCP mitigation. However, it is a permanent supply that will be available to New Magma beyond the 2026 agreement period under DCP. Next slide. So specifically for this project, the Pecan Wastewater Treatment Plant is an existing plant located in the Santan Valley of the Phoenix AMA. Project proposes to install approximately a 3.5-mile reclaimed water line extended to the upper end of the New Magma irrigation and drainage district boundaries. Currently, the plant produces about 2.17 million gallons a day of wastewater, reclaimed water production, and we are planning on a near-term expansion up to 4 million gallons a day. The area in that particular part of the service territory is experiencing rapid growth, so that project is slated to begin within the next year or two to expand to the full 4 MGD capacity of the plant. The entire 2,200 acre feet of year of effluent produced is proposed as the supply for this project. Specifically, the project will consist of a 16-inch HDPE line, approximately 2,100 linear feet, valves, blow-off controls, and metering, etc. The request is for $500,000. That is approximately 19% of the total 2.6 million estimated cost of the project. And again, this will be a permanent supply to offset groundwater use. Next. So here's a overview map of the project. The purple dotted line is the route projected for the line. The section in the middle, that is the red alignment, that is the preferred alignment. We had an engineering alternative for that southern route, but we are pursuing the easement permits for that northern route. It's a more direct route through existing MWD, New Magma existing easements along that route. And then the lower picture is the New Magma Turnout. That's the CAP Canal on the right. And then this would be the terminus of the effluent line that would be able to put that effluent into the upper end of the New Magma district distribution system to provide them the greatest flexibility to provide and move that water within the district as their members need it. Next slide. So in summary, this project was included as a portion of the DCP mitigation. The supply will be a permanent and it's a growing supply available beyond the DCP agreement period for long-term groundwater savings. The grant request is for about 19% of the actual infrastructure cost. It does not include any of the permitting, engineering, or overhead supervisory costs. There is a secondary environmental benefit to the project during periods of wet storm events. The existing Pecan wastewater plant recharge facility struggles to maintain sufficient flow, and we've had to allow overflows as a surface discharge into the nearby wash. This would eliminate those surface discharges. The supply represents a significant renewable water supply for New Magma, and which will directly reduce its groundwater demands. some of those statistics are that this represents about 5% of the total district annual demand. The northern section, or the northern project portion, this supply will represent about 15% of the annual demand. And I think more importantly, under DCP, this will represent about a 35% reduction in additional groundwater demand to offset reductions under DCP, or in terms of direct new wells that would have to be installed, represent about 2.5 new wells that will not have to be installed because of the supply of this project. And with that, I will take any questions you may have.
May I start with Mr. Rayner? Are you prepared to ask some questions?
You know, I am curious about for the water that the pumping that's foregone, I guess, by supplying this effluent. Do you generate credits that for water that you're delivering, groundwater that you're delivering to your domestic customers?
This supply will be delivered to New Magma's GSF, so that will create long-term storage credits.
Okay, what's the value of those credits?
Those will be used to help offset the obligations that the utility has under its assured water supply designation.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you currently buy credits from CAGRD or another entity?
Yeah, so the Johnson designation in the Phoenix AMA is a member service area. So the majority of the groundwater replenishment activities that would need to happen do occur through the services of the GRD.
I guess ultimately the value of those credits, if you can generate 2,200 acre feet, it's a substantial value.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Roberts.
Doug, I got a couple of questions. So it seems to me that you're going to get credits for long-term storage credits for this project, which can be pumped later. So it seems to me that the savings of groundwater is just the cut to the aquifer, which would be 110 acre feet per year. As opposed to the 2.5 wells. I just have a question about, is that really how this is looked at?
Well, I would look at it as a kind of a double benefit. If this project wasn't in place, the utility, of course, is going to continue to pump groundwater because that's their only source of water at this point. The irrigation district would have to put in those 2 to 3 wells, and they would continue to pump to support their irrigation activities. So both of us would be locally pumping a lot more groundwater. This would afford the ability for the irrigation district to lay off those wells, and then at some point in the future, as recovery is needed, that recovery will happen within the area of hydrologic impact instead of relying on pumping groundwater and then wherever the GRD may happen to put groundwater back in the AMA. So this really has a local benefit on two uses.
Okay. Well, it seems that the amount of money that you're asking is a relatively small portion of the project. It seems like the project's going to go ahead anyway. Because it has a lot of value to you, as Mr. Rayner pointed out, relative to assured water supply credits. I need to think through your explanation that you just gave, but one of the things that you might want to consider here and think about might be a little bit out of the box, would be to whether or not EPCOR would agree to a slightly larger cut to the aquifer to actually to save some groundwater as part of this project for some period of time. Just something to think about, which might end up saving a little bit more groundwater. So I just raised that as a question for you. It's probably something I'll talk with the other members about. Just an idea. All right.
That would be something we would consider moving forward.
Good, thank you. Frank.
Ron again.
Oh, okay, Ron.
You know, I am curious, what in your arrangement with New Magma, were you going to actually be charging them for that water, or is it just flowing to them?
There would be a reduced charge to New Magma. We wouldn't be able to give away the water free of charge. There is requirements under the Corporation Commission to, it does have a value, so we couldn't just give it away.
Yeah, I understand. And it's something less than CAP water, I presume.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Frank.
No question.
Well, I want to thank you, Doug, for your presentation, and we are going to take a 10-minute break.
We can do 15 minutes as long as everyone can be here by 3:20 sharp, so we can start right on 3:20.
You guys want to do that, or you want to start at 3:15?
I'm good with either.
Okay, we'll break till 3:20. Ready to go. And the first project will be ESSER design. Thank you. So we're going to take a momentary recess. Are all the council members back?
I'm back.
Is Ron with us?
No, he's out selling extinguishment.
Yes, no, I'm here. I just have trouble figuring out how to unmute.
The opposite of muting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Nog, you ready?
We are ready, sir.
Esser Design, applicant ready?
I am ready.
Please introduce yourself about bringing the groundwater system to light through educational outreach campaign, video series targeting youth and adults.
Absolutely.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Good afternoon. My name is Pam Esser, and I'm one of the principals in Esser Design. And I'm here today along with Carrie Schwartz from Arizona Project WET. And we are both going to be telling you a little bit about our proposal for this outreach campaign and video series. If we could go to the next slide, please. So first of all, our team, we have two organizations here coming together that have a proven track record as kind of a super team for this campaign. And we're going to tell you a little bit about each of our organizations. I'm sure many of you know Arizona Project WET, but you may or may not know about Esser Design. We're a graphic design marketing firm that's been in the Valley doing business for over 30 years. And our client base is, we do quite a bit of work in the education sector, primary, secondary, and post-secondary, with many of the universities, ASU, U of A, as being clients of ours. And another area that we do quite a bit of work in is municipalities, governmental agencies, the state of Arizona. And one of our clients that we're very proud of working with is the Phoenix Water Services Department. And many of you may have seen the water conservation campaign that's out and about, a very good-sized media campaign promoting water conservation. And one of the positioning for that is see water differently. So over the past 5 years, we've been doing work with the City of Phoenix Water Services Department, assisting them with branding and outreach in a variety of different areas. And so we bring a lot of understanding of water in Arizona, and then in particular to this initiative. And so, so we wanted to mention that today. Kevin Surway is our design director, and he'll be overseeing kind of the creative development for this video series and outreach campaign. And then we have a very talented videographer by the name of Brandon Steed, who will also be leading the video efforts. So, Carrie?
And I'm Carrie Schwartz, Director of Arizona Project WET, and my excitement about this opportunity is that I'll be able to put my education background as a hydrogeologist to use. My colleague Pam Justice and I will lead content development, education program integration, and assist with the qualitative evaluation metrics. Next slide, please. Our team is equipped with a plan that will reduce groundwater use and reach the entire Phoenix AMA and beyond. APW specializes in helping people build foundational knowledge about water resources that are essential to life in Arizona. And Esser Design has developed innovative water campaigns that compel people to think and plan for wise water use. Next slide, please.
So now we'd like to focus on our solution for accomplishing this goal is primarily to create an educational video series. And we've selected 9 video components to tell the story of the groundwater system, the interaction between these components and its interaction with other systems. And we know that story needs to be told so people understand about this system, and most importantly, its importance and how they can have an impact on it. We'll be targeting the youth and adults in the Phoenix AMA, although we're envisioning that the reach will go beyond the Phoenix AMA. And in addition to the 9 videos about the groundwater system, the series 2 will be 3 videos promoting water efficient technologies to really impact groundwater usage in the home and really promote water efficient technology. So that's really where we get into that impact area of really how do we conserve groundwater. So we really see the videos as an opportunity to really educate, outreach obviously to the school children, who is the future of our water users and their families, and as well as other adults in the Phoenix AMA. And we think it's a huge opportunity, the video series, because as we well know, over the past 3 months, many of us have been consuming media online in a very robust way, and in particular our students and educators. And so we really feel that this video series has the ability to be very long lasting, to be something that is very engaging and entertaining, and something that will really help to tell our story and have an impact on groundwater usage. So we really feel the video series, even though we were planning for this much earlier in the year, that this is even more important and more relevant now than ever. Next slide, please. So we're going to take you through the various tasks here. There's a total of 6 tasks in our program here. Task 2 is essentially how do we then, once we have all the videos in our arsenal, is how do we get them out into the marketplace and out into the schools and really start that engagement process. So we'll be leveraging data from Arizona Project WET to really understand their key audiences that they've been communicating with and leveraging those past and present audiences. We'll be looking to develop a marketing and outreach campaign, which will have a variety of different tasks and tools in our tool belt for that in order to really get the word out and distribute our videos and gain an audience for us. And then within this task also we'll be budgeting and an implementation timeline. Some elements of our outreach will look at strategies like obviously social media. We'll be developing a communications calendar for Arizona Project WET so that we can effectively put out our messaging on a very consistent basis and plan for that on a yearly basis. We'll be looking at a media strategy, including paid social, and a variety of other digital media. As we all know, digital media these days is a very cost-effective way to hit a very targeted audience, and it is also, the data is very trackable, and the analytics are very valuable to us to make course corrections and adjustments going forward. Next slide, please. Task number 3 is really the implementation of the outreach campaign. So that's where we'll essentially have our toolkit for marketing and communications and outreach, where we can execute on the approved media plan. We'll be launching social media enhancements, really kind of putting our messaging out there on various channels with a very coordinated graphics and messaging campaign. And then we'll be looking to update content and graphics for a newly developed Arizona Project WET website. As we all know, having an effective website presence, having it be up to speed in terms of technology, and have it be an effective and easy to use platform will be very key in terms of our distribution strategy. So all of these elements will be under this task number 3. Other elements could include paid social media placements, geo-targeted content, and potentially, and obviously to the Phoenix AMA will be our focus, and possibly a public relations component. Next slide, please. Task number 4 is then essentially the distribution of the video series to our classrooms and the delivery of lessons. We're looking to integrate the video series into curriculum units and that meet science standards, and we'll be working closely with school district personnel, teachers, and parents to promote this series to them. We'll be delivering pre and post assessments, so again, information gathering and quantitative data as much as possible we'll be looking to gather. And we'll really ultimately be looking to track an increase in the number of groundwater sessions delivered to potentially 60,000 students. Another key component is obviously the compilation of this assessment results and reporting so that we, again, can be measuring our impact each and every step of this program. Next slide, please. Task number 5 is the bigger picture website update for Arizona Project WET. So the initial task that I mentioned when we would be working on the website was to do some initial updates on messaging and graphics and coordinating our video series in. But now we'll be looking at, in task 5, a more comprehensive update to Arizona Project WET's website. And the reason that's important is we obviously want to increase visitors and views and have better tracking data. And as technology has improved over the past several years, there are many more ways to do that more effectively. So Arizona Project WET wants to have that type of platform where we can effectively deliver the video series, gather the data from those coming to visit us, and optimize the ease of use and gathering of that information. Next slide, please. Task number 6 is tracking for the, and this is in the final year of the 3-year fiscal year plan here, is tracking for the groundwater system education. So this is where we really want to dig a little deeper, tracking the engagement and the interaction and the viewing of the videos. We want to monitor and review the website analytics, which is obviously where people are coming from, how long they're spending on the website, what type of information are they looking at, are they viewing the whole video, partial of the video? So there's a lot of different information that we can be gathering through pre and post video session information. We'll also be looking to survey those that'll be utilizing the videos and gather that information. And we'll be looking to compile all of the results for final reporting. So those would be our tasks 1 through 6. Next slide, please. So the program budget request that we have here is for tasks 1 through 6. The budget total over 3 fiscal years is $496,561. And essentially that is through, you can see each of the breakouts for each of the tasks. We're envisioning year 1 to be primarily utilized for the development of the video series. And that would be the total of the 9 videos, as we've discussed previously. And then task number 2 would also be accomplished in year 1. That would be essentially developing our marketing and outreach plan for the distribution of the videos. Task number 3 would also be accomplished in year number 2, the implementation of the plan. And then obviously task number 4, the integration of the video series into Arizona Project WET's education program would essentially be year 2. The website update would also be year 2, very important for the distribution of the video series. And then year 3 would be the tracking of the data. Next slide, please. So in summary, we wanted to just kind of cover the real strengths of both of our organizations, both Arizona Project WET and ESSER Design. As I had mentioned, ESSER Design has a depth of experience in multimedia education and outreach campaigns, working with a variety of different primary, secondary, and post-secondary educational institutions. Obviously, we're a full-service firm, so a very integrated approach in terms of messaging and visual component campaign. We are also we're just going to be beginning year 3 of a 3-year water conservation campaign for the City of Phoenix Water Services Department. And so therefore, we have a tremendous amount of knowledge about, for example, items like the drought contingency plan, the complexities of the water system here in Arizona, and how important this project really is. Carrie?
I would just summarize to say that our solution was always to reach the entire AMA and make something that will last for decades. But now there's been a shift. People are planning for online education that can engage learners in in-depth exploration of relevant subject matter. What could be more relevant than this? And has the timing for this approach ever been better? Thank you very much.
So we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Ron, are you ready to ask?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Mr. Roberts?
I don't have any particular questions other than, is there some way you can estimate through your prior work what of this relative to water conservation and saving water? Can we get to that through this work?
Carrie, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a tough sell, isn't it? Arizona Project Wet is specialized in developing programs where students actually install water efficient technology. And so, then they do the math. And so we're able to actually quantify water savings through education for those particular programs. But we think that this, people understanding the groundwater system, and I mean, nobody does, right? And so we think that that is the first step. I know we always talk about, yeah, we need to educate, but then it's kind of what gets left off because we're trying to quantify. And so I guess it's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but we can definitely quantify a lot of things, including people's actions as far as water efficiency in their homes. And we can also target, as someone else said, areas like the West Valley that are using groundwater mostly and not SRP or CAP water.
Thank you. I agree with you. It's kind of hard to do that. When we got all these applications to take a look at, it was the educational ones were kind of a different look versus the project-oriented ones, and it was hard to compare these because of that. And so it's something I'm sure that the members of the GUAC are gonna talk about relative to the next step, relative to the education ones versus project-specific ones. Because I think education is critical. It's an important part of the overall ethic of conserving and using water wisely. So I don't want to miss out on that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fairbanks?
No questions.
Okay, I want to thank both of you for a nice presentation, and we may see you tomorrow.
Mr. Cleveland, would you mind if I have a quick question here?
Sure, Einav.
I just wanted to ask if the videos will be available for the public. I know you mentioned working with schools and students. Are the videos just going to be available to whoever is interested in seeing them for free?
Yes, that is the idea in terms of the distribution of the videos. And that's why we want to have Arizona Project Wet's website up to snuff in terms of being able to handle, a lot of user sections, because ultimately we want that outreach. We want the general public to be interested and engaged in this topic as well. And I think a real opportunity here to Carrie's point, education is certainly key to helping us understand why this is important and how we can be empowered to make a difference.
And really quickly, thank you, Anna. So one thing that we've realized with the COVID-19 and the shelter-in-place initiative is that our audience is very much broadening, with parents involved in a different way and teachers planning in a different way. We really recognize that our audience is much broader than just teachers and students. And so that's even magnified with the current situation that we're in.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. I need to move forward. The next speaker is from Flood Control District of Maricopa County regarding the Durango campus landscape and water conservation retrofit. So
We are here. Can you guys all hear me clearly?
we can hear you.
right, sounds good. I'll get started then. My name is Rob Hussey. I'm an associate landscape designer at the Flood Control District. And I'm joined today by Harry Cooper, who is the manager of the landscape architecture and water conservation branch here at Flood Control. Today, we're presenting the Durango Campus Landscape and Water Conservation Retrofit Project, which I will be managing. Next slide, please. Just for some context, the Flood Control District is located at 2801 West Durango Street. We're about 4 miles southwest of downtown Phoenix. This project is a complete retrofit of the Flood Control District's property in the interest of conserving water, promoting green infrastructure and low-impact development, or GILD, and educating the public on the benefits of GILD. The project has support from district leadership, and design will begin this month. We are requesting funds from the Water Management Assistance Program to assist with design and construction costs of the project. Partnership between the district and ADWR will add visibility to an important project at a crucial time in the greater effort to conserve water in Arizona and ensure that the full potential of this project is realized. Next slide, please. So in order to kind of frame this project for everyone, I'd like to share part of our the Flood Control District's mission statement, which is to ensure that stormwater is recognized as a resource for the long-term benefit of the community and the environment. Next slide, please. Furthermore, as managers of a significant portion of stormwater within the Phoenix AMA, we find ourselves in a unique position to be leaders in the larger water conservation effort for the region. Next slide, please. With that said, we feel it is important to lead by example by implementing water conservation strategies and contributing to the knowledge base on the effectiveness of GILD in the Sonoran Desert. Next slide, please. Because of this unique position, could you hit the next slide, please? So because of this unique position and our desire to promote water conservation combined with our property's need for landscape renovations, the idea to create an innovative showcase project at our campus was conceived in late 2015. Next slide, please. This idea resulted in the 2017 master plan study, which established the 3 goals that remain the focus of the project today. These goals include 1, to reduce potable water use for irrigation by 50%, 2, to better manage on-site stormwater using green infrastructure and low-impact development and alternative stormwater management techniques, and last, number 3, to provide educational opportunities to the public and district staff on each of the above goals. Next slide, please. Follow-up effort to the master plan study was a feasibility and costing assessment, or what we've begun calling the FICO study. This was completed in October of 2019 and provided a feasible conceptual plan, which will serve as a starting point for a more detailed design. The FICO study determined that we could meet and likely exceed the goals from the master plan study through the utilization of a suite of water conservation techniques and a comprehensive GILD and water conservation retrofit. Next slide, please. So the next steps for this effort, which we are actually currently in the process of doing, would be first to hire a consultant team. We actually have a consultant on board just recently through a competitive RFQ process. And then using the FICO study concept as a starting point, the consultant will design a water conservation and alternative stormwater management showcase project. Next slide, please. I want to touch on a few of the key design features that will be included in the project. First one being bioretention basins and swales. To eliminate the waste of water, all stormwater runoff on site will be collected in bioretention basins or swales, where it will be utilized by plant material, which will be carefully selected for drought tolerance. Next slide, please. For efficiency, the project will include a smart irrigation system with soil moisture sensors, making sure that plant material only receives water when it is absolutely needed. Next slide, please. And the last feature I wanted to touch on, next slide, please, concerns water reuse. So we will be installing water tanks to collect stormwater from rooftops and park and shade structures. Tanks will collect water during wet months so that it can be used during dry months through a connection to the smart irrigation system. Next slide, please. So design will include several innovative processes to ensure that the project functions exactly as needed and that we provide the educational opportunities that we hope to achieve. The first process is the analysis of rainfall data. We're going to collect historical rainfall data from the on-site weather gauge. The data will give us the most accurate estimate possible of how much runoff we can expect to have available for capture and use on a monthly or annual basis. Next slide, please. Using that rainfall data combined with detailed topographic mapping, we will develop a hydrologic model of the site. The model will tell us exactly where and how much water we will be able to collect with each stormwater harvesting feature, giving us the ability to design features to retain a specific amount of water. Next slide, please. Then the last of these processes, in order to check our work, we will be installing landscape performance monitoring equipment, giving us the ability to quantify how effectively stormwater is being managed by the project. Additionally, we intend to monitor the project's impact on stormwater quality, infiltration rates in bioretention areas, evapotranspiration rates, and tree canopy health. Next slide, please. So an important thing to consider is why all of this is important. While we realize that collecting rainfall data and hydrologic modeling aren't necessarily new tools, it's typically not part of a project of this scale. And because we intend to share what we learn, applying these processes to our project is important for a few reasons. The first one is filling a data gap. There is a lack of data on the functionality of GIL features in arid environments. Monitoring equipment will quantify how effectively our project is performing in terms of stormwater management, water quality, infiltration, soil health, evapotranspiration, and shade cover. Next slide, please. We will also be able to improve the hydrologic modeling of GIL features. It's going to be a challenge for us to accurately model the site, but working through that challenge and documenting our work along the way will remove that roadblock for future projects. Next slide, please. Then we will be able to apply what we learned. Hydrologic models are typically used to analyze large areas, and because there's so little quantifiable data on the function of GIL, they are often not included as viable solutions when dealing with large-scale stormwater management and flood control issues. This project will provide data to support the use of GIL as stormwater management and flood control solutions. Next slide, please. So beyond our contributions to the GIL knowledge base, there are a few major benefits that this project provides, including, of course, water conservation. Based on the conceptual plan from the FICO study, we estimate approximately 1.2 million gallons or about 3.7 acre feet of potable water savings per year. We fully expect to exceed that number with an aggressively water-sensitive design. Additionally, that impact on groundwater savings will grow as we make similar projects more attainable for others to complete through our innovative approach, data collection, and outreach. Next slide, please. Money is, of course, one of the biggest issues on any project, and part of this project will include creating a realistic cost model to prove that over time, green infrastructure will save property owners money when compared to typical landscape and site design practices. Next slide, please. And then in order to maximize our impact on water conservation, the Flood Control District hopes to be a resource to help others in the Phoenix AMA and elsewhere to design and construct similar projects, which will create a larger water savings impact. And even beyond that, the project is going to serve as a showcase to the Phoenix region with a design approach that can be repeated on other project sites, and We intend to host classes, talks, and tours to educate the public and students on how to design and construct these projects. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, I want to emphasize that this project is moving forward and will be constructed. We expect to start design in the coming weeks, and we will complete design within 1 calendar year and move directly to construction in months following design. Our initial cost estimate for construction is $1.5 million, with an additional $250,000 to $400,000 for design and construction documentation. And just once again, there's support for this project at the Flood Control District, both financially and from the leadership here. We are committed to our leadership role as promoters of TILID and water conservation techniques in the Greater Phoenix region. And we feel strongly that this project will be the catalyst that we need to make similar efforts more widespread, resulting in a massive water savings in the long term. Thank you very much. We have one more slide, and we'd love to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. We are prepared with questions. Frank, would you like to start?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Roberts.
I have a question about, Rob, do you know, you provided a copy of your water bill from the city as part of your application, but it was hard to tell whether that was for the entire facility or whether that was for the outdoor water use. Do you have sub-metering to know what the outdoor water use is now?
Yeah, we, our initial analysis, or actually we've been tracking it for quite some time. And so that's what our water savings is based on. We know that on average, we use about 1.8 million gallons of water per year on the landscape. So that's 1.8 million gallons of potable water per year. And we're going to reduce that down to using only 600,000 gallons of potable water per year on the landscape.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Congratulations on a great target. I hope we can help you get there.
You didn't ask me.
I'm just getting ready to ask our Acre guy if he wants to go over and form that rock pile.
Yeah.
He wants to sell him some extinguishment credits.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I was a little surprised at the total cost of this system for an area of landscaping that's really quite small. I mean, around the parking lots, around the building and whatnot. But what I wondered about was how much did that water storage, the stormwater capture component of it, probably is pretty darned expensive, because you have to provide some way to store that water through hot weather, even, so that it doesn't all just evaporate out of your tank. But a lot of work has been done both in the Tucson area, U of A, and I think they've pretty well determined that they get enough rain down there that it's kind of worth doing, and a lot of it falls in the summertime. But you just don't see anybody doing it in the Phoenix area, and I wondered if that was, a component of that whole project that was very expensive, and the likelihood of it really providing you much information or a return is kind of slim. I can see the passive stormwater swales and runoff from the lots and everything, but with that capture, you have to have tank sizes that are very large to make it worth going after. What did that component cost out of that total $1.5 million?
Hi, this is Harry Peter, sitting in this problem. Speak to that a little bit. I don't have the costs in front of us right there. Per those cisterns, the graphic that was shown was a general graphic of a water tank. And the process that we're looking at using a little bit lower key or less expensive cisterns that are opportunities to be gravity fed or be tied directly into the potable water irrigation system as an offset to potable water. So they're not overly expensive. I wouldn't have a range of that, but we're looking at corrugated metal tanks or plastic tanks that can be set right on grade. So they're not terribly expensive. I think the expense from the we're talking about is this $1.5 million system. Is a good portion of it is irrigation. A good portion of it is site modification as far as some of the infrastructure in order to be able to maximize or optimize collection of runoff into those passive collection systems, the swales and retention areas. We're looking at that value, not simply a landscape redo or renovation, but really this education and showcase to show proof of concept of GI/LID features in water harvesting and potable water reduction.
Thank you, Rob. Maybe you could bring some of that information tomorrow that we could share with the council and with staff.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I couldn't hear most of that.
And check, Anov, would you and Rob have a conversation after the meeting and maybe check to see if there's some volume or reverberation that's going on that causes some problems with the connection?
Yeah, we can reach out to him tomorrow morning.
Okay. So it's time for me to move on to the next person, which is the Maricopa Water District. They have a Northern Avenue lateral surface water capacity restoration that they'd like to do. So who's Andrew Frazier? Are you the person?
That is me. I am the person. My name is Andrew Frazier. I'm the project engineer for Maricopa Water District. The purpose or objective of this project is to restore historic capacity to the Northern Avenue lateral and make better use of our surface water that comes from the Agua Fria River and resides up there in Lake Pleasant. Next slide. You can go ahead and click through these. So they, I've got the animations on. Right now, go back one. So right now, the lateral that runs along Northern Avenue, roughly from the Beardsley Canal to the east side of the 303, is operating roughly at 60% of his historic capacity. So a little more than 11,000 gallons a minute. As recently as 20 years ago, we're now down to 6,700 gallons a minute. The capacity loss in the system is largely just due to aging infrastructure that have created choke points within the system. If we do exceed capacity, like this location here, I took this last week, we're roughly running at 40% capacity or 40% historic capacity at this point. If we do exceed it in this location and as well as in others, we end up flooding out local homes and the roadway. So we've been really restricted in what we can do. As a result, we've relied on supplemental groundwater pumping. So we have the surface water supply, we can't get it to where we need it to go. And we rely on wells, particularly a well located at Northern and Citrus Avenue to meet demand when peak demand is high. The total demand or total amount requested for this project is roughly $251,000 and it's used directly for infrastructure improvements to restore historic capacity. Next slide. And you can click through these. So right there is good. I know some of you are likely familiar with MWD, but we are a irrigation and water conservation district located in the West Valley. We serve roughly 60 square miles. Historically, our district has been dominated by agricultural production. Over the last 20 years, we've seen significant commercial and residential development. Today, it's one of the fastest growing real estate markets in Arizona, if not the United States. And one of the things, as we've adjusted to this change in our district, we've begun to rely more heavily on our surface water supply, and that's reduced, our annual groundwater pumping throughout our well field. We operate 42 wells throughout our district. If you go to the next slide, since 1999, our rolling average, 5-year rolling average has fallen about 30% in terms of groundwater pumps. And this is really due to the loss of ag land within our district boundaries to development. Next slide. But there are areas within our district where the aging infrastructure, like Northern Avenue, constrains our ability to utilize our renewable surface water supply. And the Northern Avenue lateral is what we've chosen to focus on here. Next slide. Let's see. I'll go back one. Looks like we lost an image here, but the Northern Avenue lateral, like I said, roughly extends from the Beardsley Canal to the east side of the 303. It serves both agriculture customers as well as residential customers. So there are 1 and 2 acre lots, even some larger lots that we supply irrigation water to, and they irrigate their lands with. I spoke of the capacity restrictions. We can identify that over the last 5 years, we've pumped an additional 250 acre feet out of the well that resides at Northern and Citrus as a result of these capacity constraints. If we had the surface water available, if we had the capacity in the lateral, we could get rid of this extra 250 acre feet a year. In certain areas of our district, we are fortunate that due to development, a lot of our facilities have been upgraded. These facilities go from existing old aging concrete ditches to pipelines. That is really unlikely along Northern Avenue, given the existing land use where the houses sit, and most of the land is tied up. We don't foresee any conversion to pipeline in this location for many, many, many years. Additionally, the proximity of Luke Air Force Base to the land served by this lateral makes future development on those ag lands unlikely, and ensures sort of mid to long-term water demand for ag. Next slide. So we have identified a series of culverts along Northern Avenue that are particularly problematic. Most of these are aging corrugated metal pipe CMP culverts in roadway intersections that have just been crushed. Some of them are 40 or 50 years old. We recently replaced one this last February at 185th and Northern with an elliptical concrete pipe. It significantly reduced that was a particularly problem area. It slightly increased our capacity in the lateral, but it was at a point where we had to do something about it. We were afraid of kind of a total collapse in that location. The approximate cost for that culvert there was $50,000, and that included permitting as well as the construction and materials. We've identified 5 additional culverts along this lateral that are problematic for us. The grant funding will be used exclusively to replace these culverts. Our expected timeline is roughly over 2 years, beginning this September, and hopefully being completed by September 2022. Next slide. Perfect. So, by restoring Northern Avenue lateral capacity, we know at MWD that we're going to directly offset or reduce 250 acre feet a year. That was the rolling average over the last 5 years of groundwater pumping. We'll have the surface water capacity, or the lateral capacity, to deliver our surface water and not have to rely on our well. But I think one of the more intriguing aspects of this project, which is alluded to in the submittal, but we didn't have the exact numbers, is demand along this lateral has frequently outstripped. So we have more demand than we've been able to meet. And one of our key customers along this lateral is the Adamon Water District. which is located on the east side of the 303 between Northern and Camelback, bounded by the 303 and Reams Road. They don't have surface water allocation. They rely exclusively on wells. In speaking with Adaman and running some brief calculations, Adaman and MWD believe that we could double their surface water allocation that they take from us annually, which would be an additional 2,500 acre feet a year that they would not use their own wells for. So, you know, between MWD and Adaman, we'd be reducing direct groundwater pumping by nearly 27 or more than 2,700 acre feet annually. With that, I'd be happy to take questions. And thank you for the consideration.
Thank you so much, Andrew. First question to Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Andrew. That's quite impressive, 2,700 acre feet of water. How will we get Adaman to commit to that? Are they willing to have us put a lock on their wells or something, or how is this going to be dealt with?
Well, I mean, economics is what's at play. Our surface water is cheaper than what it costs them to run their wells.
Okay.
So, you know, the commitment, they've said that they want this water. You know, the cost for our water is roughly $42 an acre foot. Their pumping costs put them roughly at $75 an acre foot. So, you know, the net savings there kind of makes it a no-brainer for them.
Okay, and so you have some contractual obligation to deliver them that surface water as well?
They are one of our customers, so they're located within our district boundaries. They are considered one of our customers. They are not a landowner within the district, so they are given lower priority. They own and operate their facilities within the Adaman Water District. They own and operate their own wells, but they don't own land. And MWD gives preference in terms of water availability to landowners.
Okay, all right. I may have some more questions later, but that's impressive for the amount of water that would be saved. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
How about Frank?
No question.
Mr. Rayner?
Yeah, I just want to make a point. You know, one of the biggest cones of depression that we still have in the whole AMA is right there northwest of Luke Air Force Base. So this is right in the area where he's talking about. Anything we can do there to eliminate pumping, it's sure going to help that big cone of depression up there.
Good point.
Okay, any other comments, thoughts? Appreciate the presentation, and we look forward to chatting with you tomorrow. We're prepared to move on to our next presentation. And that would be the University of Arizona Project WET.
Okay, can you guys hear?
Yes, go ahead. We can't hear you now. We've lost you.
Oh, hello? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you start over?
All right, excellent. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sandra Hurlbut. I'm the education coordinator for the AquaSTEM program, and I also run the groundwater program here in Maricopa County. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to present. The proposal I'm presenting today is called the Groundwater Education and Conservation Program, or the GEC for short. Next slide, please. And then we can actually skip over this because I know you folks know about Arizona Project WET. And click one more time, Melissa. So some of the benefits of working with APW. We have a proven track record, over 20 years of successful education activities within the state. We have a high level of satisfaction from our stakeholders, both teachers and students. As you can see on the chart here, 92% of our teachers in our professional development classes agree they are the best that they've ever attended. We have strong support from our community volunteers, and we offer real-world water savings. Next slide, please. So this is our fountain of youth education. We have a number of different programs that we offer, and the GEC proposal uses element of our school water audit program and our groundwater program. And we're going to click one more time. And I want to introduce our new mascot, Drippy, just really quickly. He and his wife, Flo, and the Driplets will be coming to social media very soon, so be on the lookout for that. Next slide, please. And so our groundwater and education conservation program, the groundwater component is we're going to be delivering 3 STEM and project-based learning experiences per class to 10 different schools using a specialized curriculum we're developing. It's going to be 4 lessons, possibly 5 with some multimedia, overall 90 classes for 30 teachers at 10 different schools, between 800 and 1,200 students. We're projecting 250 to 750,000 gallons per year of savings going forward. And it's going to be a 4-year program. So that's going to be cumulative going forward. We're focusing on the West Valley because they are solely or mostly on groundwater sources. So those savings are going to translate directly to groundwater savings within the AMA. Next slide, please. The groundwater component, we have 2 different models that we work with. One is the sand tank model. The other is the student model. The student model we introduced in County in 2018 to help build on some foundational knowledge with younger students. There's still that misconception about groundwater being a lake of water underneath the ground or a river, and we want to dispel that misconception, and we're really excited by the results that we've seen. We work directly with the teachers to determine which model to work with, or maybe even a combination. I do combination models with the students as well. Next slide, please. So these are some of our results here. We've had, since 2018, we've had a 3-fold increase in classes this year, 6-fold increase in participating school. Our expansion of this popular program is limited by funding, which is why we're here. Huge demand for it. EPCOR, the City of Surprise, and El Mirage have provided some funding for us to do this. Next slide, please. And then click again. So the embedded concepts for the groundwater component, we're talking about the unique hydrological cycle here in Arizona, its impact on groundwater. The students are visually observing groundwater recharge and groundwater discharge in their student models. And they also watch overdraft occur as they pump water out of the system. We always talk about groundwater flowing by gravity. That's how groundwater moves through pores and spaces, the connection between surface water and groundwater, how groundwater is part of the water cycle, even though you can't see it, it's still part of the water cycle. And of course, we use it, and then we get into some of these other concepts like subsidence and safe yield as we develop that foundational knowledge. Next slide, please. So you can see the students love working with these models. Next slide. And they are very actively engaged, which if you go out into the classrooms and the kids are actively engaged, that's a positive thing, let me tell you. So let's go on to the next slide. So here's some of our very impressive results. This is not a pre and post assessment. This is just year by year, so 2018 to 2019. But we've had some excellent knowledge gains. You can see like an 80% increase. Now this is just after 1 class visit. So we go into the class, deliver the program, and this is their knowledge gain after just 1 class visit. So you can imagine the improvement in their knowledge after 3 visits during this proposed GEC program. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the school water audit process, which is part of it. Next slide. So the school water audit has 2 main components. There's an indoor and an outdoor component. And the driving question is, how can we reduce water use or use water more efficiently at schools? Next slide. And the components of this, there's an option for a home aerator change, which right now is part of the WSI program. It's going to be brought into the GEC as a different way, but it's going to be still changing aerators at home. And then of course the SWAP program is changing aerators in school bathrooms. And we're going to work with the teachers to determine which option or other options is best. Let's click again, Melissa. But wait, there's more. And again, so we have these other options that the teachers can pick from, and having these multiple options enables the teachers to continue with the GEC program over time. So again, this is a 4-year program. So if they do a home audit 1 year, they can do a bathroom audit at the schools the next year, and then maybe do a personalized home audit the next year, so we can keep adding those water savings going forward. Next slide, please. So some of the GEC concepts that are embedded. So let's click a couple different times on this one. 2 more times, please. So the GEC concepts that are embedded is how to conserve water using technology. One of the first classes we teach them is, technology enables us to use a lot of water, but also technology enables us to lessen the amount of water that we're relying on. So we're promoting behavioral change and using water-wise technology. We show them perform indoor and or outdoor audits to promote water efficiency and conservation. All these units, the SWAP program is driven by mathematical thinking and student inquiry, so there's real tangible results. 2 of the 4 classes are going to be focused entirely on these conservation activities. Next slide, please. So you can see here the students really like it, and they are generally very surprised or amazed by how much water they can save using just a simple aerator change. Next slide, please. And these are some of the results. This is our cumulative savings, 50.8 million gallons per year of water savings just from doing simple aerator changes. The annual savings number is actually for Maricopa County alone. It's 1.6 million gallons per year. And again, this data here is mostly for East Valley schools. We haven't had a chance to expand this to the West Valley, which again is mostly groundwater based. So we really are expecting some higher results when we get over there, and the limited funding that we've had has just limited us in terms of marketing to those areas. So we're hoping that this money will allow us to get in there and to really get some significant groundwater savings. Next slide, please. Wow. Next slide. So changing the aerators in a school bathroom, you can see the older students do it as well. There's a teacher quote on there about it being a really great program and great opportunity. Students learned a lot about saving water. And the next slide. And this is a slide of total students who were participated in just the school water audit component. So we've had over 6,000 students participate in this. Next slide. And we're planning ahead in case of school restrictions, because a lot of school districts don't really know what they're going to be doing this fall. So we're planning ahead. We got plenty of COVID and contingencies in place. We can teach remotely. We can do things on Zoom or other webinar-based platforms. We have self-paced learning resources, some of them which were just cited by ADWR in their blog last month. We have more that are under development. And we also have safety and disinfection policies for the materials in case that's a concern for some of the schools. Next slide, please. In addition, some of the specific adaptations we've had, for example, we just had a kind of a homebound WSI water scene investigation. That's the home aerator version, where families have written in and requested an aerator be sent out to them. We have an activity for them, and then they can post the results on the website, which you see in the middle of the page there. And we've been really impressed that 214 families have asked for aerators. Most of them have been here in the Maricopa County area, but also around the state. Prescott, Pima County have also asked for them too, but most of them have been here in the state. So just shows you that that we can do these things offline if we have to. Next slide. So why support the GEC program? Well, first of all, students don't get exposed to these subjects in their regular curriculum. A lot of them still think that we're bringing in water from the ocean to drink, or they don't even, they get confused about they're drinking sewer water or where the water goes. So this helps clarify those things. It doesn't get taught. Provides them with real world and relevant activities to support them now in the future. That old saying about, giving somebody a fish, it feeds them for a day, but teaching them to fish, it feeds them for a lifetime. Well, we're teaching them how to fish, and we're teaching them real world things that they can bring into the future. They learn how to change aerators now. When they own a house, they're going to be able to do it, teach their family. Our units are all STEM based and project based, and that drives a deeper level of learning and understanding. So the kids really take this in. They really understand it. They have that hands-on, physical, tangible aspect to it. It provides, it supports positive behavioral change, which extends to the family unit or school community. We hear it countless times by teachers and parents about the kids yelling at their family members for leaving the water on too long or things like that. So it does offer behavioral change beyond just the students, and it saves real money. So we had a school water audit at the Western Skies Middle School this past year, which Liberty Utilities sponsored. They changed 78 aerators at the school. They're now saving over 1.2 million gallons of water per year. And the estimated savings for the school is about $3,000 per year, which is money they certainly can use to support other programs. And why support it? Of course, it saves groundwater, and that's where we're going with this, is providing the West Valley opportunity to save some real world groundwater in a tangible way. Next slide. And so Drippy wants to thank you for your continuing support. And next, and we're open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Quick question. Has the Department of Education at the state level, the superintendent, been informed of this program?
I don't think we've actually reached out to them directly. We incorporate the Arizona State Science Standards into our curriculum, and we work with them on that level, but we haven't told them exactly that we're doing this particular program. I mean, they're well aware of what we do and what we offer. We haven't told them directly.
Just to follow up on that, Sandra, if you don't mind, we do have a member from the Arizona Department of Education on our advisory board, and she's the science coordinator. And so she does know exactly what we're doing and is updating the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Clary.
Since these guys are oftentimes busy with other projects, political ones, etc., it might be something you want to get audience and share, and also figure out a way to get a corner of one of their conferences to be able to have some of the teachers teaching the conference about the experience. Enough from me. Frank, comments?
Good program, no questions.
Thank you, Frank.
Ron?
No questions.
Dave?
Well, I just want to commend you, Sandra, for a great presentation. I think it's a great program. This is how the Andrew Frasers of the world come about, is through educating them when they're young, and they come out with some good ideas to save 2,700 acre feet of groundwater for MWD. So I appreciate very much what you guys are doing. I think this is a good program. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we're down to the last two projects that are going to be introduced to us by the same person, Gary Woodard, Water Resource Consulting. One is on water efficiencies audit for HOA common areas and other irrigation customers in the Phoenix AMA. And then after we finish that one, he will introduce us to minimizing trap cooling and other continuous flows at the biomedical facilities.
Mr. Chair, this is enough. We actually flipped those for Mr. Woodard's request as it flows better. So he will start with minimizing trap cooling.
Works for me, minimize trap cooling. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say next to indicate the mouse clicks if that's okay. So next. So I have been involved with municipal water demand and conservation for all my adult life. Over the last 5 years, I've been involved in commercial, industrial, institutional water audits, largely with the cities of Scottsdale and Tucson. My partner in this effort, Roger Van Gelder, has been doing these types of water audits for over 20 years. Next. So we've been doing them for Tucson Water starting 5 years ago, and we're in our 4th year of audits for Scottsdale Water. They vary enormously in size and types of water uses and the age and condition of their infrastructure, everything from small bars and restaurants, high schools, rec centers, and at the upper end, major resorts and large medical centers. They span over 3 orders of magnitude in water demand. Next. So lately we've been focusing more on these bigger ones, including large resorts and major medical complexes. That includes the Mayo Clinic, which we recently did and which is supporting this proposal. They're particularly good candidates for these kind of water audits because they have very large water use and they're very complicated. Next. Next. So, there we go. Okay. So within them, you have a lot of the expected water uses, everything from laundries, kitchens, restrooms, but we tried to focus on the real low-hanging fruit for this proposal. So we wanted to look at things that are unique to these facilities that often result in continuous flows down the drain. So we want to reduce trap cooling for boilers, sterilizers, warewashers, and food steamers. We also want to look for continuous flows from malfunctions in these pumps, these conveyor dishwashers, water-cooled equipment in general. A lot of these are effectively single-pass cooling systems within these facilities. Next. We find that these are the types of things when you bring them to the attention of the customer that they jump on. Nobody likes to have a leak continue on indefinitely. They're usually fairly expensive to fix, and they give you an immediate large payback. Next. So the general process that we use is we work with water providers to identify those who are interested in receiving the free audits. We request 4 years of monthly billing. If they have automatic meter reading, and if it's recording, then we look at 40 days of hourly data. We send a survey to the representative, and then we have our initial visit. We talk to them, we review, complete the survey, walk the site, and take pictures. Next. So then we deploy instrumentation. We put high frequency loggers like every 5 seconds on all of the existing water meters on the site. And where there's key water lines that are unmetered, we put ultrasonic meters on. We also often log conductivity in sumps and other key places. We take samples, we test the water samples for conductivity. That's a good way to figure out if there's leaks or not. Next. And then we provide them with a detailed report, and that tells them what we found, where there are opportunities to improve water efficiency, what it would cost, and what the payback period would be. And then eventually we do the post-audit follow-up, verify that leaks are repaired, and see which other recommendations they have followed. Next. So we looked at data from over 250 of these audits, and you see some patterns. Leaks are very common, particularly in buried irrigation lines. Identified leaks are quickly repaired. On average, the things that we recommend have a 5-month payback period. On average, we identify about 12% of the total water use as being inefficiencies that can be corrected. Some types of customers are quicker to embrace these things than others, and we have found that biomedical facilities are among the quickest to act. Next. So where's the low-hanging conservation fruit within these facilities? There's 2 big opportunities: reduce instances where something has failed, resulting in constant flows down the drain, and installing cooling trap kits on sterilizers. Next. So this is the situation that we usually find. You've got your potable water, your sanitary sewer, and you've got your boiler. Next. Next. So water flows in, it gets turned into steam, but in so doing, the salts concentrate in the boiler. Next. Next. So you got the hot water blowdown, but you're not supposed to put anything hotter than 140 degrees down the drain, and this is just below the boiling point. So next. You have to add cold tap water just to keep it to not exceed 140 degrees. Next. Next. So sterilizers use that steam. When it's done, it cannot be recycled. It wouldn't be sterile anymore. So next. So the spent steam or the condensate is also sent down the drain. Next. And so this is another instance where you deliberately have to put cold water down the drain. The problem is that things often fail, and so that cold water down the drain, instead of only being temporary for short periods of time, goes on forever. Next. These are some of the components that are quick to fail: thermostatic valves, solenoid valves, needle valves, and the temperature sensors. Next. Next. Yeah. And the result is a constant flow. And even a relatively small flow of maybe a gallon a minute can add up to well over 1 million gallons per year. Next. So this is a graph from one of our logging meters, and it shows this facility was running 3.5 gallons down the drain constantly, 24/7, 365, because of a stuck thermostatic valve. Next. So that was 1.8 million gallons per year, or 5.5 acre feet a year down the drain for no benefit yet. Next. So there's one other thing that you can do, particularly in the case of sterilizers. Next. Next. You can install a trap cooling kit that is between the sterilizer and the drain. And what that does is it air cools the water, but it has a backup system so that if the air cooling isn't sufficient, it will add a metered amount of cold water. So these tend to cost about $2,500 to install one, and they tend to have a payback period of about 3 months. Next. Next. So here's a couple of examples of what we found recently. A few years ago, Roger did a number of audits for the University of Washington, biomedical research facilities, and the University of Washington. The savings were 230 acre feet per year. We recently audited the VA hospital in Tucson. We found major continuous flows, 92 acre feet per year. It's costing them almost $150,000 a year in water and sewer rates. Next. And in Scottsdale, we recently found one continuous flow, just one flow was 5.6 acre feet per year. Next. So I think I got that done in under 10 minutes. I know it's late and it's been a long slog, but I would be happy to take any questions now.
Mute, Steve.
Question, David?
Oh, I was just mentioning that you were on mute, but I do have a question for Gary. Would your work then be to basically do the audits, come out with a report with some recommendations on what each facility should do? Would it also have a cost estimate of what they would have to pay and what the expected savings in water would be? Is that sort of the gist of it?
Yeah, that's correct. However, we don't usually give a cost estimate to repair a broken valve or a broken sensor, because that usually falls in the category of a no-brainer. It's just something you've got to do. But for the enhancements like the trap cooling kits, yes, we tell them what it would cost. In this case, we tell them what it would cost installed, how much water we expect it would save, and what that would do to their water and sewer bill, and therefore the payback period.
And you would do 100 of these in the Phoenix AMA?
At least 100. We're comfortable that we can do that. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Ron?
I am curious that there was no mention of any reverse osmosis systems. I'm sure some of these industries need to deionize water, and I'm wondering if they maintain those at a high level of efficiency. I know there are some municipal entities that don't maintain theirs very well. Have you had any of those systems that you do audit work on to see how efficiently they're operating?
Yeah, another category that we hit pretty heavily initially were grocery store chains. And they use a lot of RO water. They use a lot of softened water. And we tended to find problems with their RO systems. Not so much in the hospitals. You're right that they all have them, but they tend to be much better maintained than in other commercial settings. So yes, it is something we look at. It's just not something that we find a lot of problems with within biomedical facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Frank.
Good program, no questions.
Thank you.
Gary, are you prepared to move on to your water efficiency audit HOA?
I am. So this should go a bit quicker because some of these are semi-redundant with the previous one. Next. So like I said, I've been doing this most of my life, concentrating on audits for the last 5 years, and Roger is Mr. Commercial Water Audit in the Western United States. Next. Once again, we find leaks are common, particularly in buried irrigation lines, and usually there's no evidence of those leaks. When you point out a leak, it gets repaired pretty darn quickly. And as I said before, typically the things beyond leaks that we recommend have a 5-month payback, and about 12% of the water can be saved. Next. So we did look at a number of large resorts, Scottsdale Princess, Star Pass, Canyon Ranch, and we find that they are also excellent candidates because they use a lot of water outdoors in a lot of different ways. They tend to have a lot of turf, a lot of other irrigated landscaping, pools, decorative fountains, ponds, other water features. Next. So we just find a lot of major leaks associated with them, and particularly systems where the water is coming through the irrigation water meter as opposed to a potable meter. Yeah, next. So we were able to find enough cases here. We could do some statistical analysis of the 259 audits that we looked at. 56 involved 1 or more irrigation meters. They averaged almost 2 irrigation meters per site for the 56 sites. Of those, 1/4 of them had at least 1 continuous leak. A lot more had leaks that were evident when the irrigation system was running, but 1/4 of them had leaks that were constant even when the irrigation system was off year-round. So we expect to find a greater percentage here because we're going to try to screen for sites that are especially likely to have leaks. Next. When you do have these leaks, they tend to be very large and costly. We found 853 acre-feet per year of usage by these 105 irrigation meters, of which just under 10% was leaks. And per leaky irrigation meter, they averaged well over 5 acre-feet per year. If you look at just every one, non-leaking as well as leaking, was nearly an acre-foot per year on average of leakage that you find. Depending on what water and sewer rates you look at, well, these are irrigation meters, so no sewer rates. The water costs were between $9,000 and $11,000 for the typical leak that we find. Next. There's other reasons to focus on these sites that have irrigation meters. We find a lot of broken irrigation heads producing essentially leaks when the system is running. Tucson Water did an analysis that showed between 30 and 50% of all their irrigation customers have either leaks and or irrigation scheduling problems. The scheduling problems can take several forms. One is just where you're applying too much water in general. Another is when you fail to delay the irrigation when it rains. And a third is where you wind up using the summer irrigation schedule well into the fall or even the winter. Next. So we're going to look for all of these issues in these audits. Next. We want to emphasize homeowners associations as well because they tend to be overlooked in these types of programs, and they're actually more likely to have irrigation problems because the responsibility for the irrigation systems and the landscapes is split between the homeowners association, their management company, the third-party landscape company. So as part of a recent study for the GRD, where we looked at 140,000 of their properties, we talked to a number of the HOA management companies, and they all agreed this is an area that needs to be addressed. It's also something that Scottsdale Water recently identified as some low-hanging fruit. Next. So this study that looked at 140,000 properties, we had 10 years of annual data. We had 1 year of monthly data for just about half of the properties. Next. And we found that there's just major problems, particularly with aging irrigation systems. And the cost of these is getting to a point where an awful lot of these HOAs are motivated to not only repair leaks, but to upgrade their irrigation controllers, to add localized weather station, and to spend other money. The CAGRD has pledged both money and in-kind support to increase the number of these sites that we can audit. Next. So once again, here's our general process, which I already just walked you through, so we won't do that again. Next. We do, in particular, test all these water features using conductivity, sometimes logging, sometimes simple grab samples to see if there's suspiciously low dissolved salts, if it's essentially the same as the tap water, and therefore it's not recycling, there's a major leak somewhere. Next. And then we give them the detailed report and specific recommendations on what they can do and what the cost would be and the savings. Next. So what we're going to do in this case is build a database. We're going to look at all of these irrigation customers, have the monthly billing data and the hourly data where available. Next. But then we're also going to use remote sensing. Some of the water providers already have this in hand. They have high resolution imaging with LiDAR. For others, we will use Google Earth data, which we've done in the past. Next. And we will use that to estimate a rough irrigation efficiency and to look for specific things in their hourly and monthly water use, like gradual increases over time, or lack of the seasonality that you would expect, or the continuous flows that indicate a major leak. Next. So based on that, we will then contact them and offer the free audits with once again, a priority being given to HOAs. Next. And then we will visit them at least twice, put on our high frequency loggers, walk the site, deploy the ultrasonic meters where necessary. We're also going to do our standard analysis of swimming pools if there's common area swimming pools. Next. And then finally, we're going to give them an abbreviated report, just the bottom line. Here's where the leaks are. Here's what you can do to improve your irrigation efficiency. And we will follow up at least once, as many times as necessary, to make sure that repairs have been made and to find out what adjustments and upgrades they made in their irrigation systems. Next. So we will estimate the success of this by quantifying the leaks that are repaired, how many broken irrigation heads we find. We'll make estimates based on improved irrigation schedules. And this will also look at both pre and post audit billing data, at least 1, if not 2 years before, and a year afterwards to measure to quantify the impacts. A number of the HOAs indicated that they also saw a benefit in this, and that they would like better working relationships with their municipal water providers. Next. This is something that can be done within the context of social distancing. We don't have to go in any buildings. We don't have to have any face-to-face interactions with any people. So this can proceed quickly if desired. Next. And that is it. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Fantastic, Gary. Let's start with Frank.
I especially like the focus on HOAs. There really is a huge opportunity there. People that have a reason to do better and are not doing very well today. So good program and good questions.
Thank you.
Ron?
I'm curious, did you have a goal for a certain number of HOAs to be contacted for this project?
Well, our goal for total audits for irrigation meters is at least 100 sites. We expect that would include about 180 irrigation meters. Conservatively, we would expect to find 60 continuous leaks. So depending on, we take two different approaches to estimate the water savings. One approach says it would be at least 250 acre feet a year. The other, which is very conservative, assuming that we didn't really succeed in pinpointing the ones that were much more likely to have leaks, suggests in the neighborhood of 140 to 200 acre feet per year. Now, what percentage of the total audits are HOAs is, I don't know. I would be happy if they were all HOAs, because as Frank was mentioning, that's really where the lowest hanging fruit is, and they really haven't received much attention historically.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Ron?
You know, when I read through this proposal, I have to tell you that one of the things that I was trying to figure out was, well, who was getting the benefit from this? I know that if we can identify water saving potential, that certainly benefits all of us, but it almost seemed like we were paying for advertising the services that this company provides. But you know, if we're contracting to have a bunch of audits done just for the water savings. I mean, if we can find a bunch of leaks and encourage those people to fix it, well, then we've met our goal. We've identified savings.
Sure. Dave?
I have a couple of questions. One, Ron, when you mentioned you were going through it, I thought you might be looking for ways to sell them some extinguishment credits, but
yeah.
My questions are you going to work with the cities where these HOAs exist, and you know, what's their role going to be?
Well, so we've worked a lot with Scottsdale and Tucson, and so what they do, Scottsdale actually is one of those entities that not only has high resolution visible and infrared imaging for their service area, they've got the LiDAR data. So one of the things Scottsdale is going to do is help us to quickly identify the amount and type of landscaping on each place. So then we can compare that with the seasonal water use and find out what, you know, roughly what the irrigation efficiencies are. Then Scottsdale has worked with us to they usually make the initial contact to give us the legitimacy. You know, we're Scottsdale Water, we have this conservation program, and we're offering you this free water audit, you know, no strings attached. You can save water and money. And then usually there's somebody from Scottsdale Water's conservation office that goes with us on at least the first site visit. So they give us the historical billing data, they give us the hourly data. They have to often go to the meters to pull the 40 days of hourly data for us. So there's a lot of involvement with the water providers. I would anticipate a presentation to the AMWA commercial conservation group that meets regularly to solicit other service areas to do this. I've got pretty good working relationships with a lot of them.
So you would look for other cities besides just Scottsdale too, right?
Yes, and it wouldn't just be cities. The GRD, you know, also wants to work with the private water companies, and I have now, because of that study, working relationships and good contacts with EPCOR and Arizona Water.
Okay, that's good. So my last question is, what happens to the database? Where does that go? Who gets that information, how will it be maintained, things of that nature. I like the database idea. It's just what's going to happen to it.
Well, generally we have a single client like Tucson Water or Scottsdale, and so it becomes their property, and we offer, to maintain it if they would like, or they can take that on themselves. Something like this, it might be something that we would offer to AMWA, for example. I think the most likely entity is the GRD. The GRD is, after a 10-year hiatus, about to jump back into water conservation efforts in a fairly substantial way.
Good. Okay. Well, I think that database would be important relative to just managing this going forward. And I think this could help the GRD significantly from the standpoint of reducing their obligation, obviously, and their costs. So hoping that down the road, sooner than later, they can put more than 10,000 into it. So anyway.
No, yes, I hear you. And, they are just in the process of developing their conservation plan. They have a target, I think, of the end of August. This was just something that they put up before the study was even done, just because they were so intrigued by the concept.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask Anav if she has some conversation that she would like to have, questions, etc.
Mr. Chair, was Mr. Rayner had a chance to ask questions?
Ron, did you have a chance to ask a question?
Yes, I asked my question on it.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead,
Mr.
Anav.
Chair. So Mr.
I'll
Woodard,
give you my time.
I have two questions for you. Hopefully it'll be quickly. So it seems like there are a lot of potential for conservation here through the audits. And as we all know, audit is a great way to identify the issue, but then there's the other side of the implementation of the solution. So my question to you is just how is that process going to be incorporated in the project, if it is going to be incorporated, and if there is any thought behind who are the customers that would be identified to do the audits, in the sense that those customers would have the resources and the capacity to actually implement the solutions that were identified through the audits. That's my first question.
Right, and that is often a problem where you can identify things that would improve water efficiency that have a very short payback period, and yet for some types of customers, you come back 3 years later and they just haven't gotten around to it. They just haven't done it, or the problem is that the utility bills are in one part of the budget, improvements have to come out of another part of the budget, and So when we were looking for the low-hanging fruit, we also wanted to avoid, the highest hanging fruit. And so we know that these biomedical facilities have been the quickest to act on our assumption, our recommendations. They're just set up to do that. And for the HOAs, through the study for the GRD, they're getting some financial pain from increasing water rates and sewer rates. They pay more for the water than anybody else because of the replenishment obligations. And a lot of them, whatever the water bill is for the common area is divided in equal parts and added to the water bills, for all the homes that are in there. And HOAs, I heard again and again, they're getting more and more pushback and angst from the homeowners about these water bills. So I can't honestly tell you that HOAs are quick to jump on these things because nobody's ever done these audits for HOAs. But talking to them and talking to the management companies, clearly they're going to jump on leaks. Everybody quickly repairs leaks, and I'm hopeful that they will be quite open to making the other improvements that we identify.
Thank you for that. And my last question, if you can just say it in a sentence, the question that I asked Arizona Water Company as well. So if only one project could be funded, which project out of the two that you presented you think would provide the most benefit to the AMA?
God, I left the room for that presentation, so you caught me flat-footed. You know, I'm looking at the relative budgets, and I'm looking at the estimate of cost savings, and they're pretty close. So I guess I would say. I guess I would say it's long overdue that something was done to try to work with the homeowners associations and the management companies. The waste that takes place within the biomedical facilities drives me nuts, but it is going down the drain. It is going down the drain. Whereas the waste that we see with underground irrigation pipe leaks, it's either evaporating away, transpiring away, and becoming perched water somewhere. You know, it's different. It's different. Okay. So to say, I would say in general, the tiebreaker is save the outdoor water because you don't get another chance to treat and reuse it.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Down the drain water goes to Ron Rayner's farm.
I'm sorry, what?
Down the drain water ends up at Ron Rayner's farm.
Uh-huh.
It gets to be reused again.
Don't mind that water going to the sewer.
Yeah. Okay, we're limited. We have 4 minutes to conduct some business here. So, Gary, I want to thank you and your people for, again, everybody. I want to thank everybody for the day, for working with us on the time element. We have some work to do tonight and tomorrow, and being able to take limited funds and try to hit the best, try to get the biggest benefit out of those monies. So do I need a call to the audience at this time, staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you can have a call to the council. I know there are a lot of calls to the council during the presentation, and then call to the public if anyone has anything to comment, but I don't believe there were any comments in the chat box throughout the meeting, and then we can recess.
Okay, so is there anyone that needs their last shot before we adjourn? Is everybody happy and ready to come tomorrow?
All happy here, there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Dave. Okay, any council member need a last item to be brought forward? Hearing none, staff, orders for tomorrow. Everybody needs to get their scorecards in tonight.
Yes, please. If any of the members that submitted it already had any changes, please do send it to Melissa. Otherwise, we'll just use what you sent earlier. And that's all we have. We're looking forward to seeing you all virtually, at least tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Thank you for everybody for your time, and we're going to adjourn at 4:58. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And you want people calling in shortly before that to be sure we